This boy was a can collector. His name was Kuki. He was born without magic. Because of that, he lost the girl he loved and was constantly humiliated by the nobles. In this world, magic is revered, and only mages are respected. But when the end of the world arrived, Kuki awakened an absurd ability. He can train for years inside his own mind without a single second passing in reality. And so, when he entered the academy, he became a genius, bringing the nobles to their knees. A great mage makes a shocking revelation, warning that a catastrophe is about to hit the world. He explains that in 5 years, all of humanity will be completely destroyed by this threat. The people are terrified because he reveals his skill is future sight, and he's never been wrong. But then, the mage says he also managed to glimpse a small hope. He points to a group, revealing that the 7 saviors present will save the world. The crowd is shocked as they start to recognize those hooded figures. Among them was humanity's strongest man, and also its most brilliant mind. Even the youngest S-class mage in history was in that group of heroes. The prophecy about the end of the world was terrifying, but now there was a chance to survive. With this lineup of heroes, the people fill with hope, changing the world from that day on. And so, in this context of fear and hope, the life of a certain young man begins to change. Our protagonist watches the announcement on the big screen, and that's where his story truly begins. The scene shifts to Tokyo, 5 years later, on the exact day marked for the prophecy. A TV reporter interviews the public, asking which hero they're betting on most. Meanwhile, a simple garbage collector does his job, totally oblivious to the crowd's excitement. The protagonist, Ikuta Kuki, finds it strange they call this the end of the world. It feels more like a festival. Just then, the screen shows a girl's face, and he instantly recognizes her as Miki Mirai. The footage shows her fighting bravely, hailed as the strongest among the 7 saviors. He then remembers she was set to become a direct subordinate of number 7, an elite position. A flashback shows young Kuki in a library, always studying with a huge pile of books, but 2 girls commented that his effort was useless since he didn't have a drop of magic. That's when Miki appeared, telling him to ignore what others said and that it was closing time. She encouraged him with a smile, saying he could do it as long as he never gave up on his dream. Back in the present, inspired by her on the screen, he picks up a discarded magic book in the street. He thinks that if he doesn't give up, one day he might use magic. But suddenly, the book starts to glow. Right then, 2 guys show up, calling him magicless trash and thinking it's pathetic he's a cleaner. They speak with disdain, saying a cleaner shouldn't be picking up magic books, just garbage. One of them burns the book with magic and throws a can at Kuki's head, leaving him confused. Suddenly, the sky darkens and huge red holes begin to emerge, just like in the prophecy. And finally, bizarre monsters and giant skeletons start emerging from the portals, beginning the apocalypse. Amidst the chaos, a light appears in the sky, announcing that the 7 saviors have finally arrived. And then, humanity's strongest hero team appears, ready to face the threat. Their leader stares down the monsters while the crowd screams for them to go all out. People were full of hope, shouting for them to save the world from destruction. One of the heroes, looking very confident, asks for calm and warns that he'll end it all in the blink of an eye. Another older savior declares firmly that it is time to show humanity's true power. With that, hero number 2 takes the lead, flying at high speed toward the monsters. He fires a powerful energy blast, and the crowd goes wild with the hero's incredible attack. Everyone thinks it's the end of the monsters, but when the smoke clears, the creature is intact. The monster didn't suffer a scratch, and the people despair seeing one of the hero's bodies on the ground. The camera focuses on 3 girls cheering excitedly for hero number 2, still celebrating. But in the next scene, they appear completely covered in blood, still with frozen smiles on their faces. The girl's expression is pure shock and terror, not understanding what just happened there. We then see the image of defeat, with several Salvadors fallen and gravely injured on the ground. Amidst the smoke and destruction, even the leader and the strongest were totally defeated. The protagonist is in shock, eyes wide, not understanding anything that's happening. He wonders if it's real. Weren't the 7 saviors supposed to be able to win? In the middle of the chaos, he runs desperately through the burning city, shouting and looking for his sister. The young man stops for an instant, looking around with an expression of pure panic. He finally spots his sister with number 7, but she says it's no use. They are retreating. But when a monster approaches, the hero grabs her and asks what she is talking about. Suddenly, he pushes the girl toward the monster, screaming that she will be the bait. Without mercy or pity, Number 7 kicks his own ally to serve as a sacrifice for the monster. Kuki watches everything horrified, screaming and unable to believe what he just witnessed. He questions what the hero is doing, and the guy replies that he is one of the 7 saviors. The traitor then says he is much more worthy of living than any woman, abandoning her there. Fallen on the ground, his sister sees him and begs him to run as a bizarre monster approaches. But Kuki stands in front of her, yelling at the disgusting monster to stay away. Even wounded, she thinks her brother is incredible because even at a time like this, he manages to be brave. The protagonist stares at the creature, cursing himself for not having a drop of magic to fight. He positions himself in front of the monster, saying he doesn't care what happens to him. With a desperate look, he screams and begs for magic to at least save his sister. At that moment, a glowing magical symbol appears out of nowhere right on his hand. And with this new power, he manages to hold back the giant paw of the monster trying to attack him. His sister, fallen on the ground, looks at everything, disbelieving what she is seeing happen. Kuki himself is amazed by the power, wondering what the hell just appeared. A voice then explains that he now has magic, and soon he will understand the secret behind everything. He feels an absurd force take over his body, and notices that the monsters have stopped moving. It is revealed that his sister used a magic book, happy to have taken it from the ministry library. The book releases an intense light, and the protagonist sees time rewinding around him. The scene goes back 5 years, to the exact day the prophecy of destruction was announced. We see his younger version in the crowd, hearing that humanity would be destroyed. With a look of shock, he finally understands what happened. He has gone back to the past. Back in the past, the crowd around him celebrates excitedly, looking up in admiration. Kuki falls to the ground, completely disoriented, wondering what the hell is going on. He pulls out his phone to check and sees the date from 5 years ago on the screen. The protagonist is in shock, realizing he's actually gone back 5 years into the past. A guy walks past him, asking a friend if he heard the news that the world is going to end. The friend is skeptical, but the other insists it's a prophecy from the great mage, so it must be true. Someone asks if that means the 7 saviors will have the mission to save everyone. Just then, the city's big screen starts showing the heroes and the crowd goes wild. The first to be introduced is Sagai Tetsu, known as the strongest man in all of humanity. Next up is Jumon Seijiro, the tycoon who practically rules the world with his influence. The third is Igawa Himika, the powerful and feared queen of the entire criminal underworld. The fourth savior was Kyogi Rampo, a true monster with an unlimited amount of mana. The fifth name was Ashia Kei, the ultimate mastermind known for knowing absolutely everything. The sixth was young Suzaki Irori, the youngest genius mage in all of history. And finally, Araki Leo, the guy blessed with looks, money, and skill, completing the dream team. A guy in the crowd gets excited, saying that all of this is really happening. The people celebrate wildly, completely confident that the heroes will indeed save the world. But Kuki watches it all grimly, wondering if he's the only one who remembers that tragic day. He has a quick flashback to the future he came from, remembering all the despair and destruction. Just then, his phone suddenly starts ringing, and he sees it's a call from his mother. He answers, startled, and she tells him that Mickey suddenly fainted, sending him into a panic. The scene then cuts quickly, showing the facade of a huge medical center in the city. Desperate, Kuki arrives at the hospital and throws open the room door, yelling for his sister. His mother was already inside and turns to him with a very worried expression. He sees Mickey unconscious on the bed, and his mother explains that the tests show nothing wrong. The doctors have no idea what happened, and he realizes this hadn't happened in the past. He then remembers her using the magic book and suspects the spell is the cause of it all. With an idea in mind, he heads to the school library where he used to spend most of his time. He looks for an old book he once read and finally manages to find it on the shelf. Reading the book, he confirms that his sister used a forbidden magic on him, but the most important part is missing. Meanwhile, 2 classmates, Washita and Kusano, were talking about their dream of becoming saviors. Washita said he wanted to be the strongest mage, just like number 1, to have all the girls at his feet. But Kusano quickly cut him off, saying that in terms of popularity, number 7 won by a landslide with millions of followers. We then see how the 7 saviors were super famous, with people even using keychains of them. The protagonist remembers that 5 years ago, in this very world, everyone blindly believed in them. But the truth is, they were useless, and if things continue this way, the same tragic future will repeat itself. He can't let his sister's sacrifice be in vain, and decides he'll change things himself. Just then, the 2 bullies finally find him hiding in the library, just as they expected. Washita approaches with a mocking air, calling Kuki a magic-obsessed freak. He then snatches the book from the protagonist's hand, asking if he was reading about magic again. Kusano also taunts him, saying it's useless since he's a failure with no mana at all. With a cruel idea in mind, they look out the window, planning some mischief for Kuki. Washita then says with a sinister smile that since he loves magic so much, they'll show him a little. A crest begins to glow on the bully's hand, and Kuki realizes he's activating a skill. The bully uses his skill, yelling that today, Kuki will kneel and beg for forgiveness just for being alive, but the protagonist doesn't even flinch, dodging the blow with a calmness that startles the attacker. Washita is shocked, wondering why the hell his gravity skill didn't work this time. He yells that he should be on the ground and shouldn't even be able to stand after that attack. Seeing it didn't work, Kusano gets annoyed and prepares his own thorn magic to attack. But Kuki dodges everything with ease, saying they're too slow for him. He realizes that magic from people with low mana doesn't work on him, and that his body has gotten stronger. Then, it clicks. He understands that he now has the mana from his sister's regression magic. A glowing mark appears on his hand, and he remembers she had mentioned this in the future. The bullies become furious, yelling and accusing Kuki of having awakened a new skill. The protagonist ignores them, concentrating on understanding the power of this crucial ability. They see a magic book on the floor and assume his skill must be weak, and that it was just luck. But a mysterious voice announces that the bully's skills have been stored, leaving him confused. Suddenly, the world around him dissolves into blocks of light, transporting him to another place. There, a woman welcomes him to the library, revealing that this space is his true ability. A mysterious woman appears and introduces herself as the skills librarian, explaining that this place is a library. She then calls out to Kuki, who looks up, completely shocked by the bizarre situation. He wonders if this can really be his ability, still unable to believe it. Looking around, he notices a glowing bookshelf, but finds it strange that there are only 2 books there. Suddenly, the 2 grimoires fly off the shelf and stop right in front of him. The librarian then announces that the tutorial will begin, explaining that skills can be read like books. With that, Kuki holds the 2 books, one glowing green and the other red. The scene then cuts to Washita and Kusano, 2 students who were showing off their skills. Kuki realizes the colors are the same, understanding that the books are their abilities. The librarian confirms that they are excellent skills, and that any power he sees will be stored here. He's shocked by this revelation, and she asks if he wants to read one to test the power. With a calm smile, the woman explains that this entire place is Kuki's own mental world. She also tells him that time doesn't pass in reality, so he can take his time reading. Meanwhile, in the real world, time is frozen right in the middle of the 2 aggressors' attack. The librarian finishes by saying the content is complex, and reading it might be very painful for him. He ignores the warning of pain and chooses one of the books, leaving the librarian surprised and pleased. Kuki thinks this is paradise, as he can read as much as he wants and gain new abilities. He gets excited about the idea of filling the place with books, and perhaps becoming the strongest. The librarian tries to warn him about the skill limit, but he's too excited to listen. With a sigh, the young man composes himself, preparing to absorb the book's knowledge. A short time later, the woman approaches, asking if he has finished reading the skills. With his eyes glowing blue, he confirms that he perfectly understands the power of both. Back in reality, Kuki faces the bullies, who are confused by his calm demeanor. They panic when they see their attacks have stopped, and ask why nothing is working on him. The protagonist notices that time really hasn't passed, and a blue aura appears in his hand. The mark of the skills he copied appears on his palm, glowing with intense power. With a single gesture, he activates the gravity skill, launching the 2 aggressors into the air. With a cold look, Kuki confesses that he was always very jealous of their abilities. He says he always knew he could use those powers much more efficiently, and then he cranks the gravity to its maximum, sending them plummeting toward the ground. The scene focuses on Washita, who panics as he falls face first towards the ground. And to add to the humiliation, one of them ends up pissing himself out of fear from the fall. Kuki then announces he's going to use the other ability, and his hand begins to glow with a green aura. Before they hit the ground, thorny vines shoot out and trap them in midair. Hanging there, they start cursing at Kuki, yelling at him not to act so high and mighty. He just watches, thinking how good it feels to finally be able to steal others' skills. With a determined look, Kuki clenches his fist and declares that this ability is now his. With that, he activates Life Drain, and the 2 begin to scream in agony. Kuki then says that a skill like this is wasted on the 2 of them. He raises his gaze to the sky, seeming to remember a much greater purpose. Looking at his hand, he thanks his sister and promises to get strong with the mana she gave him. He swears he will save the world and his sister, something the false saviors couldn't do. But suddenly, someone taps his shoulder, interrupting him with a "Hey, hey," or it was Araki Leo who arrives with a mocking smile, asking who he's calling a false savior. Kuki is shocked to recognize number 7, Araki Leo, and asks what he's doing there. The guy says he just heard a noise and then asks if Kuki is one of his anti-fans. He then shows his phone, revealing that the protagonist was appearing on his live stream. Araki holds up his phone and intimidatingly asks if he's going to apologize or not, but Kuki doesn't flinch, and states that he wasn't wrong because they failed to save the world. The scene cuts to a flashback, showing Mickey being thrown in front of the attack. Kuki says that Leo only hurts others. Upon hearing that, Araki's expression begins to change, showing that he's getting really angry. Kuki then explodes with rage and yells in his face that he's not a real savior. The two stare each other down for a moment, the tension rising with every second. The protagonist grows fearful as he senses the aura coming from the man in front of him. With a terrifying look, Araki asks if he wants to fight and calls him pathetic. A golden aura explodes around Araki, prompting Kuki to use his skill to copy his power. With a look of contempt, the hero gets annoyed, finding the boy's audacity pathetic. Kuki is startled by the pressure of that aura, impressed by the power of one of the 7 saviors. Araki then raises his hand toward him, ready to show why he's a hero. But suddenly 2 girls appear and shout Araki Leo's name. Completely shocked, they get super excited, wondering what he's doing there, and one even wants an autograph. The hero gets annoyed by the interruption, clicking his tongue and muttering what a pain it is. He then tells Kuki he got lucky, but next time he won't get away. Just like that, his attitude does a complete 180, and he goes to greet his fans with a super friendly smile. Kuki is relieved, thinking his magical power was so absurd that he would have been defeated. But a new danger emerges, and he feels powerful magic coming his way. Out of nowhere, a fireball grazes past him, forcing him to dodge in shock. From a distance, a girl shouts an apology, saying she was practicing, and the spell went wrong. She runs up to him and asks if he's okay, and Kuki recognizes her as Miss Kanai. We learn that she is Kanai Momo, a special class student with absurd magical power. It's explained that certified mages are an elite group, chosen every 4 years for special missions. The test to become one of them is so difficult that the pass rate is less than 1%. The scene cuts to Momo and Kuki walking, and she praises him for dealing with Washita and Kusano. She gets thoughtful and says she remembers that Ikuta didn't have any magical power before. He then confirms this, explaining that it seems an ability has finally awakened within him. With a smile, the girl confesses that it felt good, as she found those guys really annoying. Kuki thinks she's a good person, and that maybe she'll believe his story and help him. He then decides to take a chance and asks what she thinks about the 7 saviors. Momo excitedly replies that they are her ultimate goal, as she dreams of becoming the strongest mage. Hearing that, he gives up on the idea, realizing she would never believe the truth. But then she has an idea, and suggests he measure his magical power again. Kuki is surprised, as he hadn't thought about the possibility of a magical power measurement. The scene then changes to the special training room, which looks like a basketball court. Arriving there, Momo proudly presents the special class's power measurement machine. She explains that the device allows you to fight a virtual monster while measuring your power at the same time. Kuki clenches his fist, thinking that if he becomes a certified mage, people might trust him. He becomes determined, wondering if this way everyone will finally believe his story. But suddenly, Momo is startled by the presence of a teacher who appeared there. The teacher scolds her, warning that only special class students can enter without permission. At that, Kuki shouts to the teacher, asking to be placed in the special advancement class. The man is confused, as he remembers Ikuta was last in the previous measurement. The boy then declares that he will also take the certified mage exam in 1 month. Momo gets excited and asks the teacher to allow it, since she also wants to measure her power. Since it was a request from Kanai, the teacher ends up allowing it, and the machine is activated. They are transported to a virtual forest, a perfect replica of a real hole. From the outside, Momo asks for the monster's level, and the teacher says it's rank E. A small yellow monster appears, and she explains that fighting it will measure their power. With a confident smile, Momo says she'll go first and concentrates fire in her hand. She launches a powerful fireball that completely engulfs the small flying monster. But the creature emerges from the flames almost unharmed, leaving Momo surprised she didn't defeat it. Suddenly, the monster evolves into a giant form, revealing itself to be a rank A creature. Momo asks if that's really a rank E, but the teacher reveals the level was set to rank A. But she gets super excited, because if she defeats it, she'll prove she's rank A or stronger. With that, the giant creature begins to attack, launching several fireballs in their direction. The teacher shouts that it's madness, as a rank A is too strong for any student. The monster charges forward and hits Momo hard with a powerful swipe, slamming her to the ground. Down on the ground, she yells to the teacher that things have gotten ugly and asks him to initiate an emergency escape. But the teacher says he's trying, but the safety device isn't working. Injured, she doesn't know what to do as the monster roars, ready to attack again. Kuki then explains that to get out, it's just like a real hole, and they need to defeat the boss. The giant monster lunges forward, ready to attack them with its sharp claws. The girl panics, realizing she won't be able to dodge in time, but with a quick leap, Kuki shoves her out of the way, saving her from the creature's pounce. He then floats in the air using his gravity skill and asks if she's okay. She's shocked to see the brown crest, recognizing the gravity manipulation ability, but the monster doesn't give up and prepares to attack them again in midair. Kuki calmly says they just need to defeat the beast, leaving Momo outraged at the idea. The scene then shifts to Kuki's mental world, where the librarian was waiting for him. She tells him she'll teach him a new way to use his skills against the enemy. It's explained that he can use 2 skills at once, like magic addition. Back in the fight, Momo warns him that gravity alone won't be enough to beat an enemy like this. He then replies that's not all he has, and reveals the other marks on his hand, shocking the girl. With that, he combines his gravity and vine skills, creating a thorny whip. The protagonist charges at the monster, ready to unleash his new power. The attack hits its mark, and the giant creature screams in pain from the impact. With a grunt of effort, the protagonist launches his attack, yelling that this is how it's done. The thorny whip shoots forward with incredible speed, completely wrapping around the monster's body. The creature then begins to pixelate, disintegrating after the fatal blow. Back in reality, Kuki and Momo appear in the room, and he comments that it was more tiring than he thought. The girl is dumbfounded, unable to believe he defeated that monster in a single blow. He blinks, exhausted from the effort, but relieved to have won. But on the other side of the room, a weird student is peeking through the door, wondering if they're dead yet. It's revealed that he hacked the system and thought Kuki wouldn't stand a chance against the rank A monster. The boy is shocked to see the simulation dissolving, realizing they survived. Just then, the professor runs up to them, desperately asking if they were both okay. Momo explains it was thanks to Ikuta, who defeated the monster with a single attack. The screen then displays the results, and while Momo's mana is high, Kuki's reads as an error. The professor is shocked by the reading, as he's never seen a result like that before. Kuki then turns to the door and asks the boy if he was the one who tampered with the device. Momo explodes with rage and grabs him by the collar, yelling that he's the one who almost got them killed. The boy yells it wasn't him, but Kuki pressures him to fix the device. Scared, the boy gives in when he sees the crest on Kuki's hand, showing that he has the skill. With no choice, the student starts working on the machine, trying to fix the mess he made. But meanwhile, Kuki's eye glows intensely, using his ability to copy the boy's power. The electronic hacking skill is successfully stored, and a new book appears in his mental library. With a satisfied smile, the protagonist thinks about how useful this new ability will be. The professor then grabs the boy by the shoulder, calling him for a little chat in the principal's office. He drags him down the hall, warning him that if he finds any proof, he'll be in deep trouble. The professor glances back, still suspicious about what happened between the students. Kuki looks a bit awkward, scratching his head as he tries to explain himself to the girl. The scene changes, and a notice on the blackboard tells us there are 30 days until the mage exam. The professor then introduces Kuki as the newest student in the special advancement class. The protagonist bows and introduces himself to the class, saying his name is Ikuta Kuki. The students start whispering about him, and a girl raises her hand to ask a question. She then asks which savior he admires the most, leaving Kuki stunned. The students comment that every mage wants to be like the 7 saviors, who are global idols. Kuki's expression turns serious as he thinks about the true role of these so-called heroes. He then replies that he doesn't admire any of them, as he remembers the dark face of a savior. Next, he shocks everyone by saying the world will be destroyed if it's left up to the saviors. He continues, saying that talented people like them can't just stand by and wait. Momo is surprised to hear him say that together, they can prevent the end of the world. With great passion, he states that he needs everyone to fight, and that he himself will become stronger. Kuki declares that he will surpass anyone, so he can save the world that's in danger. But a student was recording everything, and posted it online with a caption calling Kuki a lunatic. The video quickly goes viral, with everyone using hashtags showing love for the 7 saviors. The entire internet is filled with posts supporting the heroes, showing how much they are loved. From students to workers, everyone sees Kuki's speech and treats it like a joke. The news spreads so far that it reaches important figures, like Juman Seijiro. The scene cuts to the 7 saviors gathered together, watching Kuki's video. The professor informs the class that the exam is next month, telling everyone to prepare. With that, Kuki's presence in the classroom leaves the other students completely shocked. The professor stands thoughtfully in the hallway, because Kuki had no mana until the day before. Over the phone, he reports that the boy's mana is now immeasurable, and that he has some very extreme views. He continues, saying that Kuki has spread the idea that not even the 7 saviors can save the world. On the other end of the line, Jumon Seijiro hears the report and authorizes him to take the certification exam. After hanging up, he turns to a mysterious figure and asks for his opinion on the matter. The person was the #1 ranked Sagai Tetsu, who simply observes everything with an air of superiority. Tetsu just closes his eyes disdainfully, showing he's not the least bit interested in the subject. He then stands up and says he doesn't care about the ideologies other people have. As he walks through the room, a trail of ice freezes the furniture, displaying his incredible power. Jumon Seijiro, the #2, just smiles and comments that Tetsu remains a cold man. Meanwhile, Kuki sighs nervously, regretting that he said too much in class. He sits alone on a bench, thinking that he just spoke his mind, even knowing the consequences. To make matters worse, he sees on his phone that rumors about him are already spreading throughout the school. He thinks about how before his regression, he also admired the heroes, and now he just seems like the weird one. Just then, a fireball flies past him, startling him with the surprise attack. A female voice then calls out and asks him why he looks so down. It was Kanai Momo, who appears with a smile and asks him to just call her Momo. She sits down next to him excitedly and says she finds him interesting for getting strong and criticizing the heroes. Momo continues, saying it made her realize they need to get stronger themselves. She then comments that, in the first place, they don't even know if the world is really going to end. But Kuki cuts her off with a serious look and states that yes, the apocalypse is real. He explains that for people to listen to him, he first needs to become a certified mage they can trust. Hearing this, Momo breaks into a smile, seeming to understand and fully support his decision. With a determined look, she says that he has no choice but to pass the exam. He smiles back and thanks her, promising to buy her a bowl of ramen, and she immediately asks for 2. The scene then shifts completely, taking us to the front of a huge medical center. Inside, in one of the rooms, a girl named Miki Mirai lies unconscious in bed. Kuki appears at her side and tells his sister he's going to take the exam so he can save her. With that, Kuki clenches his fist, knowing this is his only chance to save her. A month passes, and the scene shifts to the grand auditorium of the Ministry of Magic, where the exam is about to take place. Inside, the other candidates start whispering as soon as they see Kuki arrive. They recognize him as the guy from the video, wondering why he's taking the mage exam. Suddenly, someone taps him on the shoulder and calls his name, startling him. It was Momo, who, with a huge grin, tells him to relax and just do his best. Kuki smiles back at her, feeling much more confident with the support of his new friend. But moments later, his expression hardens, and he clenches his fist, showing his determination to pass. Now in the classroom, the test begins, with dozens of students completely focused on the written exam. Momo looks very calm, answering the questions with an expression that says she knows it all. Kuki then glances at the proctor's computer and gets a rather bold idea. He decides to risk it, and a magic circle made of data begins to glow in the palm of his hand. With that, he activates his electronic hacking ability and manages to breach the exam system. A while later, the students gather in the hall, anxiously looking at the results board. Momo's jaw drops and she shouts, saying that what she's seeing is simply incredible. It turns out Kuki placed 3rd, using his ability to cheat by copying the answer key. Momo is distraught over her own ranking, shouting that it was horrible and that this isn't good at all. But Kuki reassures her with a smile, telling her he knows she'll pass, so everything is fine. It's explained that the first phase was just to weed out the weaker candidates, and the real test begins now. In a quick flashback, we see that Kuki spent the last month researching his skills extensively. He also practiced a lot and has already gotten used to using his containment abilities without any trouble. That's why he's confident he'll soon be able to use that secret technique he trained so hard for. The scene changes, showing all the candidates who passed gathered in the center of a completely empty room. The instructor announces that the second phase will be a survival battle, and Momo celebrates that they ended up in the same group. It's explained that a virtual battlefield will be activated, and anyone who can no longer fight is out. Each defeated opponent will award points, and the top 10 at the end of the time limit will advance to the next phase. The man also warns that, despite there being a 3rd stage, most candidates are eliminated here. Kuki and the others turn serious, understanding that only 10 people from their group will be able to pass. The instructor then snaps his fingers and announces that the time limit for the test is 15 minutes. Suddenly, everything around Kuki begins to transform, leaving him very surprised. He is transported to a forest, and with that, the second stage of the exam finally begins. Momo jumps right in, telling Kuki she'll see him later as she rushes into action. She then preps her skill, unleashing a powerful 1,000-hit barrage of fireballs. One of the nearby candidates is caught right in the middle of the attack, with no chance to escape. The system then announces that the participant can no longer continue and has been eliminated from the test. Momo cheers excitedly for scoring a point, and Kuki thinks to himself that she gets really fired up in fights. But suddenly, A group of 3 students surrounds him, thinking he'll be easy prey. Kuki was expecting this, knowing everyone there thought he was weak and defenseless. One of them attacks first, firing a sticky blue energy blast toward our hero. The guy hits his mark, but he quickly realizes something is very wrong with his attack. Turns out, Kuki was faster. He dodged it with ease, leaving the attacker speechless. Another bully tries to help, using a smokescreen to try and blind the protagonist, but the skill has no effect at all, leaving her confused by the huge mana difference between them. Seeing that magic doesn't work, the last of the group activates his iron skin and goes in for a physical fight. Kuki just watches the enemy approach, showing no concern for the attack. With just one hand, he easily stops the blow, completely nullifying his opponent's strike. Kuki thinks that the sticky shot, smokescreen, and iron skin skills are quite useful. He then thanks the 3 for demonstrating their abilities and prepares to counterattack. With green energy emanating from his hand, our hero activates one of the skills he copied. He then summons a monster of thorns, which attacks the trio of bullies without mercy. The system announces that all 3 have been eliminated, and Kuki celebrates the success of his new technique. Watching from a distance, Jumon Seijiro and the professor comment on how his mana is completely abnormal. Seijiro then smirks, wondering if any candidate will be able to land a single hit on him. But suddenly the rank 7 hero, Araki Leo, appears on the battlefield with a very smug look. A new rule is then announced mid-combat, leaving Kuki confused by the sudden change. The rule states that anyone who lands a hit on Araki Leo will immediately pass the test. The professor explains that the hero himself requested this, so he could record a project for his channel. With open arms, Araki invites all the candidates to try and fight him right then and there. But in reality, he just sees them as pawns to make him look good and get more views. The other students see this as a golden opportunity and decide to attack him all at once. Araki remarks that it's tough being so popular, but gets ready to face the oncoming crowd. With his energy, Araki easily repels the students, warning them they won't be able to touch him. But then he notices Kuki in the background and recognizes him from somewhere, looking quite surprised. He remembers the video that went viral online, where Kuki appeared on a live stream for everyone to see. In that video, our hero was screaming at the top of his lungs that they weren't real saviors. Back in the fight, Kuki thinks it was a good idea to block the attack with his thorns. He then changes his mind, declaring that he will now judge the hero personally, with his own hands. The energy around him is so intense that the other students can't even get close anymore. Enraged, Araki yells that he can't stand weaklings who think they're the strongest of all. He then attacks with full force, his energy strikes cutting and slicing through Kuki's thorn defense, and he even gets injured by the force of the impact. Seeing this, Momo feels guilty, thinking she dragged other people into this mess. She decides to confront the hero, asking if he doesn't think he's being too hard on a candidate, but Araki couldn't care less. He attacks the girl without mercy, telling her not to lecture him. Even while injured, she wonders if this is what a hero is supposed to do, and prepares her fire attack. The hero mocks her, calling her skill a cheap and useless circus trick. With no way to defend herself, Momo screams in pain as she's hit head-on by the hero's energy attack. The impact sends her flying, and she slams into the ground as Kuki watches everything from above. In a quick flash, we see that Kuki's vision was of what would happen if he didn't act in time. Seeing his friend in danger, he clenches his fist tightly, and his energy explodes with pure rage. Araki then says her skill is garbage, and that he always eliminates anyone who sees his true nature. Even though she's badly beaten, Momo struggles to get up and keep fighting him, but Kuki is faster, combining the smokescreen and thorn user skills. Seeing this, Araki is shocked, wondering how that guy's mana increased so much all of a sudden. A black smoke then starts to seep from Kuki's hand as he prepares to use his new technique. He unleashes the power, and the smoke spreads across the entire battlefield, completely surrounding the hero. Araki thinks it's just a distraction and looks up, trying to understand the strategy. Using the smoke as cover, the thorns strike him from within the haze. With his face injured, Kuki points at the hero and declares that he's landed the first hit. Lying on the ground, Momo is impressed that he has already mastered a skill he just learned. On the ground, Momo wonders just how strong Kuki can get as he readies himself for the next round. Araki is furious. He screams at Kuki, asking if he has any idea how much his face is worth. He roars that for dirtying and scarring his face, Kuki can be sure he won't leave this place alive. Then, a dark portal appears in the air, revealing that the hero has a summoning skill. Suddenly, a giant tiger made of pure electrical energy begins to emerge from the portal. Araki then reveals his summon, the mythical beast Fuma, and prepares to attack with full force. Kuki is shocked as the beast's strength was on a completely different level. We then see that Kanai Momo is also being attacked by a powerful monster. With a smirk, Araki Leo reveals that his skill is a rare summoning type. He brags that he can freely control the three-eyed beast. He even claims his power is S-class, or perhaps even higher. Then he tells Kuki to get a taste of one of the rarest abilities in existence. With no other choice, the protagonist screams as he tries to defend himself, but the blow hits him head-on, sending Kuki's blood flying everywhere. The force of the impact is so insane that he is instantly thrown back. Lying on the ground and badly injured, he hears Araki say it's impressive that he survived, but the villain warns that with the next attack, he definitely won't be so lucky. The beast prepares to deliver the final blow to Kuki, who is almost out of strength. From a distance, a desperate Kanai Momo screams for Kuki to stop and run away. Kuki thinks it's over for him as a message warns that his life is in danger, but suddenly, his eyes glow, and a blue screen appears out of nowhere. Inside his mind, Kuki finds himself surrounded by a digital data structure. It's at this moment that the librarian appears and recommends he use the bind skill. The scene shifts to 3 weeks before the exam, and Kuki seems confused about its application. She explains that until now, he had only been adding skills, but he could also multiply them. Kuki becomes thoughtful, as he'd never imagined such a possibility before. The idea was that instead of adding them, he could multiply skills to create a stronger spell. With this, he realizes he has finally found a way to become even more powerful. The librarian warns that it's risky, but Kuki cuts her off and says he'll do it. Full of determination, he states that he needs to get stronger and will master the technique. Seeing the boy's excitement, the librarian gives a satisfied smile. She then begins to explain that first, he has to read 2 skill books at the same time, and right after, the next step would be to create a new ability within his mind. Kuki is focused, processing the information that he needs to create a skill from scratch. He then begins the process, combining gravity manipulation with cross arts. Inside the library, he places his hands on the books, ready to start fusing the skills. The new skill would be a fusion of gravity and spikes, creating a brand new power. But he gets frustrated and yells that it's useless, as it seems like absolutely nothing is happening. The librarian then explains that it's no use, since just using 2 skills is already a superhuman feat. To make matters worse, combining them to create a new spell is even more difficult, and she concludes by saying, "This is the domain of gods, not something learned easily." The scene returns to the present, on the day of the exam, with the librarian still watching him. He thinks that he trained for 3 straight weeks, but couldn't learn a thing in the end. At this rate, Kuki knows that Araki will kill both him and poor Momo. Then he remembers the skill he copied from Momo, the one Araki called useless. We see a flashback of the girl screaming as she's hit by a powerful attack. But Kuki disagrees, as her skill is strong because it's simple and has many applications. Suddenly, he feels a strange sensation, as if his heart were on fire. An image of 2 books begins to form in his mind, one of them glowing red. With that, the protagonist finally understands what he needs to do and says that it's going to work now. In the real world, a powerful red aura explodes around Kuki's body. He unleashes all this energy at once, surprising the beast summoned by his enemy. Araki is shocked and wonders how he still has so much power left. Seeing this, a hopeful, happy smile spreads across Momo's face. Kuki prepares to attack with everything he's got, using his powerful bind skill. With a confident smile, he raises his hand and makes several rocks float around him. He finally succeeds, combining gravity manipulation with the fireball skill. With a victorious smirk, Kuki announces the name of his new magic, Meteor Shower. Araki is speechless, wondering what the hell those flaming rocks in the sky were. In a panic, he screams for his beast, Fuma, to destroy those meteors at any cost. The creature obeys instantly, firing a blue energy beam from its mouth to defend itself. Fuma's attack hits the first meteor, causing an explosion of fire and light. But Kuki continues to control the fall of the other rocks with a simple wave of his hand. The meteors bombard the beast relentlessly, creating a sequence of large explosions. A gigantic explosion then engulfs the area, kicking up a cloud of dust and smoke. Araki looks at Fuma, refusing to believe his summon was defeated so easily. Amidst the chaos, Kuki remains standing, controlling the power of his new ability. From a distance, someone watching comments that this fight is taking way too long. The teacher then asks Master Sage Tetsu if the student in there will be alright. They see 2 silhouettes in the smoke, and the teacher is completely confused. The scene cuts, revealing Miki Mirai, who is observing the battle from afar. The dust settles, revealing a panting Araki, with his powerful beast Fuma defeated on the ground. Kuki then taunts him, saying that the fireball skill he mocked has shown its true potential. Seeing this, Momo is moved and blushes, surprised by Kuki's attitude. The protagonist continues, saying that Araki just relies on his skill's strength. He's not truly strong himself. He then accuses him of being the real piece of trash, since all he does is look down on other people. But Araki denies it all, screaming that it's not true and that he is different from everyone else, that he's the chosen one. Kuki replies that there is no such thing as a chosen person, nor an unchosen one. But Araki calls him stupid, saying with a smile that of course such a thing exists. The scene shifts to a flashback, showing 6-year-old Araki eating a steak. He was having dinner with his family, and his mother calls him over for a chat. She tells him he is a special human being and can have anything he desires in life. His father adds that everyone around him is nothing but trash. We then see young Araki stepping on another boy while claiming that place belongs to him. It is shown that he could do whatever he wanted, as everyone around him was garbage. Because he was special, he felt entitled to mistreat the other children. A bit older, he awakens his skill and summons the beast Fuma for the first time. The other girls at school drool over him, calling him incredible for having such a rare power. This reminded him that he was a chosen one, so he orders Fuma to strike a pose. The beast makes a silly surrender pose, looking like a giant muscular kitten. Araki is amused by the fact that such a huge monster does everything he commands. With his talent and blessed life, he thinks there is nothing in the world he cannot have. Back in the present, Araki screams that he has everything: family status, women, and skills. To top it off, he shows he has plenty of money, holding up a very expensive potion. Far away, the other students comment in confusion, thinking Kuki was the strong one. Without thinking twice, Araki downs the potion in one go, right in front of Kuki. He explains that the liquid is a super rare item, not found just anywhere. With a smile on his face, he says the effect is a total recovery of his energy. And not only that, the potion also doubles his magic power, making him even stronger. Kuki is shocked, as that was a broken enhancement item. Araki boasts that with his power doubled, his beast's strength will also increase. Fuma then roars loudly, enveloped by an even stronger blue aura. The protagonist is in shock, not knowing what to do against all that power. The villain taunts him, asking if Kuki still has the strength to fight now. With an evil smile, he warns that this is the end of the line for Kuki. Momo despairs upon seeing the scene, screaming her friend's name from afar. Then Araki orders Fuma to attack, commanding it to tear him to pieces. But to everyone's surprise, the beast simply stands still, looking away. Kuki faces the situation with a serious look, showing not an ounce of fear. Araki gets irritated and asks what is going on, as the beast no longer wants to obey him. Furious, he tries to kick the creature and screams that it should be his dog and obey. But Fuma roars back at him with full force, leaving Araki completely terrified. He doesn't understand why that is happening, since his skill shouldn't allow such rebellion. Just then, Kuki reveals that he also has the skill, showing a floating magic book. Araki is left stunned, wondering if that is some kind of magic trick. The protagonist explains that if there are two users who can control the same beast, Fuma will obey the one with whom it has the strongest bond of friendship. Araki then realizes everything, and says with disdain that it is a copy-type skill. Desperate, Araki screams that he has been with Fuma for much longer and orders it to obey. But Kuki reveals the true reason, saying the beast never truly trusted him. Araki is shocked by the revelation, and Kuki explains that he couldn't connect. We see a quick flashback of him observing Fuma, while he says there was a catch. Kuki finishes by saying that Araki's horrible attitude made the beast change its mind. Fuma's eye glows intensely, showing that it has now chosen a new master. Understanding nothing, Araki sees Fuma simply jump and stop right next to Kuki. The protagonist explains that upon connecting with the beast, he realized how much trash Araki is. Kuki says that Fuma is also alive and has the right to be happier with him. Outraged by the betrayal, Araki screams for the beast to stop joking and come back right now, but Kuki reminds him that Fuma's mana is doubled because of the potion he drank. The beast then charges a giant energy sphere in its mouth, ready to attack with full power. The power beam hits Araki squarely, and he screams in pain from the absurd impact. Fuma's attack is so brutal that it tears Araki's body in several different ways. Lying on the ground, he refuses to believe he lost to a person like Kuki. The protagonist approaches and with a furious look, orders him to apologize to his sister. Araki is confused and asks what the hell he is talking about now. With a mark glowing on his hand, Kuki repeats more forcefully that he must apologize. Out of patience, he grabs Araki's head and slams it hard against the dirt ground. The system then announces that a participant has been eliminated for being unable to continue. From afar, Momo watches that whole scene with a look of shock on her face. The other students also can't believe it, wondering if all that was really real. They finally realize that Kuki, the last in the ranking, defeated number 7. expression. The scene shifts to a hospital where Kuki finally wakes up looking a bit lost. Just then, Kunai Momo appears by his bedside, calling out to him with a worried voice. She explains that she was also out for a week after using too much mana right after he did. Then, she holds his hand tightly, saying she's actually the one who should be thanking him. With a red face, she thanks him for protecting her from Araki's dangerous attack. Kuki is a bit stunned, looking at her with a completely confused expression, but then he suddenly remembers the exam and panics, asking what the result was. She gives a triumphant smile and happily reveals that they both passed the test. He manages a faint smile of relief, glad that at least she managed to do well. In his mind, he regrets passing out and thinks he failed because of it. Angrily, he clenches the bedsheet, feeling weak and useless, unable to change the world with his power. He then congratulates her, but Momo finds it strange that he's acting like it has nothing to do with him. With an excited gesture, she breaks the news, revealing that he passed the exam too. The scene cuts to the front of the enormous and luxurious academy where they will now study. Seeing the other students, Kuki thinks that passing is great, but he feels like the real challenge is just beginning. He's shocked to discover that, somehow, he ended up becoming first in the class. At this, the other students start gossiping, doubting if he can really save the world. Kuki reflects that because he defeated one of the 7 saviors, the mistrust towards them has grown. It's then that the world's #1, Sagai Tetsu, is introduced as the most powerful savior. The students feel his insane aura, but they still mock him, thinking he could be beaten. But with a single word, Tetsu unleashes a bluish energy and tells everyone to shut up. Out of nowhere, giant ice crystals sprout from the ground, showing his absurd power to everyone. Kuki is impressed, thinking about how that terrifying mana managed to silence the crowd instantly. Tetsu faces the students and warns them that words are useless against what they are about to face. He explains that in the holes, there are monsters waiting to devour them, and their mana is just food. With a serious look, he says that getting stronger is the only way for them to survive this life. Tetsu ends his speech by declaring that a certified mage who isn't strong doesn't deserve to live. The protagonist and the others look up, stunned by the #1's power. The scene quickly cuts to an empty playground, creating a moment of calm. Momo is super excited to meet her idol, while Kuki doesn't understand her admiration. Momo then reveals that Tetsu was the one who inspired her to become a certified mage. The scene shifts to the past, showing her as a little girl crying alone inside a dark hole. Suddenly, 2 monstrous beasts with red eyes appear in front of her, growling. One of the monsters leaps to attack, preparing to devour the defenseless little girl. Panicked, little Momo covers her head, screaming in fear and expecting the worst. But out of nowhere, a giant block of ice stops the attack, and a mysterious voice tells her to stop crying. It was Sage Tetsu, who appears with his powerful aura, having saved her life at the last second. He looks at her and says that if she becomes strong, she'll never have to cry again. Back in the present, she says that's when she decided she would get stronger to save people. Kuki listens to it all and gives a small smile, perfectly understanding his friend's feelings. Then, she asks him why he decided to become a certified mage. With a determined look, he answers that his goal is simply to prevent the end of the world. Momo remembers he said the 7 saviors couldn't save them, and she becomes thoughtful. She gets closer to him and asks, point blank, if he by any chance came from the future. But she quickly laughs it off, saying she's just kidding, because he talks as if he already knows everything. With his body trembling, Kuki reveals that he has already lived the future, 5 years from now. Momo is speechless, thinking it's a joke and remembering he was supposed to have died in the apocalypse. But he asks her not to laugh, and to listen very carefully to what he has to say. Seeing his serious face, she finally understands, and realizes the world is really going to end. The protagonist then confirms her fear with a grim expression, making the atmosphere tense. She's shocked, realizing that not even the powerful #1 will be able to save them. The scene shows a glimpse of the future, with Ashiake dead and the other heroes fallen. Even Sage Tetsu, the strongest of them all, is shown on the ground, completely defeated. Kuki explains that there was no way he could handle all of that alone. It was simply impossible for him. With a clenched fist, he says that no matter how strong someone is, everyone needs to fight together. Momo repeats the word allies, looking at him with a mix of surprise and admiration. He then confesses that she's the first person he's told this to, his first true ally. With a red face and a sincere smile, she thanks him for the trust he's placed in her. But then she asks why he doesn't tell everyone, since more people would believe him. Kuki explains that regression is an ancient magic that no one even knows for sure exists. He also reveals that if his secret gets out, his sister could end up in great danger. Momo understands the gravity of the situation, and immediately asks what their plan will be from now on. With a clenched fist, Kuki replies that they need to get stronger, and that's why he became a mage. The scene then changes, showing the two of them walking together through a park, ready for their new journey. It's explained to us that he and Momo were placed in the same squad, beginning their days as mages. The group arrives at the edge of a giant hole, preparing to explore their first dungeon. At that moment, one of the veterans asks if it's the newbie's first time there, which gets Momo excited. Kuki thinks about how he's been in virtual dungeons before, but has never faced real monsters. His expression turns serious as he knows this will be his first real battle, but the veterans calm them down, explaining it's a beginner's dungeon, and they just need to follow behind. The pair agrees, although they seem a bit tense about the situation, and get ready to descend. Without wasting any time, one of the more experienced guys yells for them to go, jumping into the hole. Then, the whole team begins to descend along the cave walls, starting their exploration mission. It's explained to us that newbies always start in low-level dungeons, accompanying the seniors. The veterans handle the main fight, and the newbies learn just by watching and gaining experience. Suddenly, one of the guys gets annoyed when he sees a bunch of monsters charging at them. He then tells the newbies to take care of a few monsters that headed their way. Instantly, Kuki and Momo get into a combat stance, ready for their first fight. Kuki uses his skill and summons thorny vines, which quickly trap one of the monsters, and with the enemy immobilized, Momo prepares a fireball to finish the job. The veteran praises the rookie's spirit, while Kuki says he can still fight a lot more. With a smile, the other guy advises him not to rush, as getting used to it slowly is the best way. But the protagonist fills with energy and asks them to watch what he's about to do. He then combines his thorn skill with Momo's fireball, creating an area of effect attack. Momo celebrates the new move, and even the veterans are left speechless, finding it incredible. Suddenly, Kuki feels a power flowing into him, leveling him up as a mage. He realizes frustrated that C-rank monsters give too little experience for him to get stronger. The scene cuts to the outside, with Kuki already climbing out of the hole. The portal closes and Momo celebrates excitedly, happy that they're back on the surface. The veteran asks how the mission went, and she says she was nervous, but glad everything worked out. With a serious look, Kuki surprises everyone, saying he wants to try a high-level pit. Momo is startled by his courage, calling his name with a worried expression. The group leader admits the boy's skill is impressive, but there's a catch. He explains that power isn't everything, as real experience makes all the difference when it counts. Kuki clenches his fist and agrees, getting the veteran's message, while Momo watches him. The scene changes to a diner, where a student complains about being hungry, while Momo eats a sandwich. Eating his snack, Kuki thinks that he's finally understood what the veterans meant before. He realizes he won't defeat strong monsters with a skill he barely knows. He needs experience, but Momo explains that the world of mages is rigid, and missions are decided by rank. She asks if he's still in a hurry, and Kuki says yes, but he understands the rules. He then reveals that there are only 4 years and 10 months left until the end of the world. With a serious look, Kuki says his first goal is to gather more trustworthy allies like her. Momo listens intently, chewing her snack while agreeing with his plan. The second goal, he explains, is to gain status so the world will listen to his warnings about the danger. Then, he needs to copy the skills necessary for battle, like defense skills to protect people, and also healing skills to help the injured, wanting to have as many abilities as he can. With a serious face, Momo asks what the fourth and final step of his plan would be. He replies that he needs to get strong enough to defeat the monsters that even the number 1 couldn't beat. With a clenched fist, he feels the pressure of time, knowing he needs to act fast. Desperate, he thinks that at this slow pace, he'll never get strong enough to save everyone. Momo then remembers something and gets Kuki's attention with an idea. She explains that if a mage becomes as strong as the 7 saviors, they can skip ranks. Kuki gets excited by the news, but she admits she has no idea how to achieve that. He then realizes that if he's recognized by the saviors, he'll be able to fight in stronger dungeons. The scene shifts to a meeting room where the 7 saviors are discussing a serious matter. Ashia K, number 5, asks with a small smile what the topic of their conversation is, and Jumon Seijiro, number 2, replies that the subject is the rookie, Ikuda Kuki. At this, Kyugi Rampo, number 4, refers to him as the brat who defeated Araki's son. Seijiro explains that the boy used the thorn skill, and then immediately activated another ability. Igawe Himeka, number 3, concludes that he must have multiple skills, which is very rare. Suzaki Arori, number 6, just says it doesn't matter, seeming uninterested. Everyone then turns to Sagai Tetsu, number 1, wanting to know what he thinks about all this. Out of nowhere, he draws an ice sword and vanishes at an absurd speed, surprising everyone. The scene cuts to Kuki, who senses a powerful and intimidating presence approaching him. The other saviors are shocked and speechless, wondering what Tetsu went to do. Sagai Tetsu appears out of thin air in front of Kuki, already wielding his powerful ice sword. Rampo is startled by his appearance and asks how he got past the electronic lock, but Kuki isn't fazed, and he activates a new skill, creating a magic circle in his hand. The other saviors notice it's a lightning skill, and the protagonist asks what they want. With a serious and determined look, Kuki reveals that he actually came here to ask for a favor. Seijiro hears this and becomes curious, wanting to know what this rookie's request could be. Then he faces Tetsu and asks, with all his courage, for them to let him join the Seven Saviors. Kyugi is shocked by the boy's audacity, not understanding his bold proposal. Then Seijiro asks if Kuki thinks he can take the position just because he won. Ashiya then reminds the boy that he himself said the Seven Sages were useless, but Kuki retorts, thinking aloud, that this way he could become an S-class mage faster. Seijiro observes his mana and starts thinking about the rank-skipping system. It's explained that even Sagai, the strongest, took 6 months to achieve that. Kuki insists with a determined look, saying he needs to get stronger now. At this, Kyugi explodes with anger, yelling at him not to be a conceited brat. He explains that mages evolve over time as dungeons get harder. Enraged, Kyugi moves to teach him a lesson, but Seijiro tells him to stop right away. The old man then reveals his suspicion that Kuki might be able to copy skills. Hearing that, Kuki's expression changes, becoming a bit more serious and tense. Kyugi is completely incredulous, wondering if such a skill can really exist. Ashiya finds the situation interesting, while Igawe seems quite bored with the conversation. To wrap things up, Seijiro dismisses Kuki, saying he understands his reasons but not today. Kuki is disappointed by the refusal, as he wanted to copy one of the sage's skills. He then decides it's time to use his last resort and unleashes his mana. A powerful white aura explodes around his body with incredible pressure. The sages are shocked, wondering what kind of absurd power that is. Kyugi gets angry and yells, thinking the brat is planning to fight them all. But suddenly, Kuki bows as a sign of respect, leaving the big guy confused. He says he'll take their words seriously and will train twice as hard. Kuki directly thanks Kyugi for the lecture, which motivated him even more. With that, he turns and starts walking calmly out of the room. Kyugi calls him back, and Kuki thinks his bait has been taken. The big guy praises the boy's mana, saying he has good manners after all. Kuki smiles and acts humble, but thinks this isn't his style. Then, Kyugi asks why he's so desperate to get stronger. The boy's expression changes, growing darker as he remembers his reason. In a quick flashback, he reveals his sister collapsed and is now in the hospital. He explains he wants to be a mage she can be proud of when she finally wakes up. Moved, Kyugi cries and grabs the boy, shouting that he'll train him himself. The scene changes to the grand arena, where Kyugi explains that his skill creates barriers. Kuki reveals in his thoughts that he'd already researched the skills and wanted to copy Kyugi's. He dreams that with such a strong barrier, he could finally protect people. Kyugi prepares for the test and announces it will be a fight of skill versus barrier. He then summons a massive barrier from the ground called the Wall of Determination. The wall rises with absurd power, showcasing the strength of his ability. With that, Kyugi challenges the boy, telling him to try and attack the wall. Kuki doesn't hesitate and charges forward, activating his Iron Skin skill. His blow hits the wall head-on, causing an explosion of golden energy, but in the same instant, the impact rebounds right back into the boy's arm. The force is so great that he's thrown backward, breaking a barrier on the ground. Kyugi catches him and explains that the wall reflects the damage it takes. He then dares Kuki to break the wall, warning him he's not lying. The big guy promises that if he has the courage and succeeds, he'll join his squad, and best of all, he would take him on a mission to conquer an S-class dungeon. Kuki focuses and decides to use his skill, making a power seal glow on his hand. Then, he summons Fuma and fuses it with a fireball, creating a giant tiger. Kyugi can't believe it, wondering what the hell kind of skill can fuse powers. Then, Kuki orders Fuma to attack with full force, and the tiger prepares a blast. The beast unleashes a roar of flames, a powerful technique aimed right at the target. The blast of fire surges forward with absurd speed, destroying everything in its path. Utterly shocked, Kyugi yells that it's impossible for him to have broken the wall in one hit. Kuki flinches, already expecting to receive the full damage of the attack back, but he realizes, confused, that he felt nothing and took no damage. Kyugi explains that the wall doesn't reflect power onto whoever breaks it on the first try. He admits the boy is the first to achieve this feat and looks at him differently. Kuki is flustered by the praise but happy to have earned his recognition. The big guy then turns with a small smile, seeming quite pleased with the outcome. He asks if the boy managed to copy it, and Kuki confirms he got the absolute barrier. Kyugi then says he'll share the power but warns that a copy never surpasses the original. Kyugi then asks a serious question, wanting to know if Kuki doesn't trust the ministry. The boy hesitates to answer, remembering a heavy moment from his past. But to his surprise, Kyugi reveals that he doesn't trust them either. He says the ministry has been acting strange, and even he doesn't know what the Grand Mage is thinking. Kuki tries to call out to him, but suddenly something terrible happens right in front of him. Out of nowhere, someone attacks Kyugi from behind, making him spit blood. Kuki panics and screams his name, unable to believe what's happening. He's shocked to realize that the attacker was the Grand Mage himself. We're told this is the Grand Mage, the head of the Ministry of Magic. He was the one who foresaw the end of the world using an ancient vision magic. And to try and prevent this disaster, he handpicked the 7 sages himself. Back in the present, Kuki stares at Kyugi's body lying on the ground, badly injured. He calls the sage's name with a trembling voice, still not believing the scene. But it's no use, as the big guy is on the floor and isn't moving at all. Then, the Grand Mage advances on Kuki, ready to strike with his sword. The boy reacts quickly and uses the skill he just copied, the Absolute Barrier. The sword attack is successfully blocked, protecting Kyugi's fallen body. Enraged, Kuki yells and activates another skill, the Thorn User, with hatred. With that, several giant green thorns emerge to attack the Grand Mage with full force. But the old man activates his own skill, Future Sight, and his eyes glow. He dodges all the thorns with ease, as if he already knew where they would land. Kuki gets frustrated, unable to land a single hit on the guy who can see the future. To make matters worse, the mage starts creating illusions, leaving the boy completely confused. Kuki notices the old man's movements are strange, almost like a glitch. He thinks it doesn't seem human at all as the mage's image flickers. Suddenly, Kuki is startled by a move he couldn't predict at all. The Grand Mage's head simply vanishes, as if an illusion is dissipating, and then he disappears completely, leaving Kuki shocked that he escaped like that. The scene changes to the Ministry's morgue, where Kyugi is lying on a gurney. Kuki approaches his body and apologizes for not being able to save him. With a sad look, he says he's always had a question about one little thing. He questions how the mage foresaw the end, but not a future where the sages won. We see an image showing that in all the visions, the sages ended up losing. Kuki then has a realization and wonders if the mage actually saw the truth. He understands that from the beginning, the old man knew the 7 sages couldn't save the world. The boy doesn't understand why he would tell a false prophecy and what the reason would be. He then grabs his phone, which shows a tracker, and thinks of a skill called Sticky Shot. It's revealed that during the fight, he used the skill to place a tracker on the Grand Mage. The Grand Mage is hit dead on by the Sticky Shot without even realizing what happened. It's explained that the skill allows him to know the location, showing where the mage is on the map. With this, Kuki becomes determined and says he will uncover the truth behind everything. Following the tracker, Kuki arrives at a suspicious building with a barbed wire fence. He peeks through a door and is surprised by what he finds inside. The place looks like a lab, filled with strange capsules that resemble glass coffins. Kuki wonders what the hell the Grand Mage would be doing in a place like this. Suddenly, the old man appears and attacks him with full force, throwing the boy far away. Kuki rolls across the floor, grabs a pipe, and activates the Iron Body skill to defend himself. With the pipe, he manages to block the mage's sword strike in a clash of power. The Grand Mage remains silent, just watching the boy with a very serious look. The fight continues intensely, with both of them trading blows and moving very fast. The mage faces him and asks if he's wondering why his attacks are so different from the prediction. Kuki reveals that he copied his skill and that now both of them can see the future. The mage confirms that's why his future sight isn't working properly. With their powers balanced, they resume fighting with a frantic exchange of blows. Kuki pressures him and shouts for him to tell him what he saw with his foresight ability. The two face off with their weapons locked in a tense stalemate filled with sparks. Kuki presses the mage, demanding to know why he lied about the prophecy to the 7 sages. He remembers the people suffering and questions how the mage could remain silent, knowing about the hell that was coming. The boy becomes furious, accusing the old man of having caused all that suffering on purpose. The image of his sister in the hospital comes to mind, renewing all his anger and determination. With the pipe glowing, he shouts with hatred that he will never be able to forgive the Grand Mage. Then, he attacks with a powerful blow, hitting the old man squarely with all his strength. But the mage doesn't spit blood, but rather a strange mud, leaving the boy confused. Kuki attacks again, and the old man's body explodes into a disgusting puddle of mud. He is shocked to realize that it wasn't blood, but some kind of mud. Suddenly, another voice emerges, and Kuki turns to see who it is. The voice explains that, just as he imagined, the Grand Mage was actually already dead. Then, the sage Ashiya Hikaru appears with a smirk, confirming the leader's death. Kuki recognizes him immediately and asks what the hell he's doing there. Ashiya calls him slow, saying it takes him too long to understand things. He reveals his mud puppet skill, which allows him to control bodies using mud. Ashiya reveals that the Grand Mage everyone believed in was his puppet all along. Kuki is completely shocked by the revelation shouting that it can't be true. He then realizes that the so-called prophecy was also a huge sham created by him. Then, Ashiya confirms with a smile that he made the mage lie in order to destroy the world. Kuki is consumed by hatred and curses him, unable to believe the evil of his plan. But Ashiya explains that the end of the world was something scientists were already going to predict, so he used the mage to prophesy it first, and thus create the false saviors. With people believing the 7 sages would save them, everyone was relieved. The false sense of security made people completely lower their guard, and with everyone relaxed, he could destroy the world much more easily. Kuki is confused, wondering what he means by destroying the world. Ashiya then confirms that the end of the world is inevitable, as it is their will. He then reveals that this is why he decided to kill and control the great mage. By doing so, he forced him to lie, saying the 7 saviors would save the world. Kuki's eyes widen in pure shock, unable to believe those words. He wonders if this guy can possibly be serious about something so horrible. A memory of that terrible day flashes through the protagonist's mind, showing the attack. Kuki finally understands that Ashiya planned everything from the beginning. Ashiya then smiles, saying he chose himself as a savior to move around more easily. But he acknowledges that Kuki saw through the farce and tried to save the world on his own. With his hand glowing, he warns that the hero's wanderings are a problem. Our hero is on high alert, preparing for what might come next. Suddenly, a brown slime begins to form rapidly on the ground. It's his skill, Mud Marionette, which creates several puppets from clay. He reveals that he has collected dead mages and challenges Kuki to defeat them. Kuki yells at him to stop messing around. His fist glowing with power, he punches the ground with all his might, demanding to know why he wants to destroy the world. But Ashiya just smirks, saying there's no point in talking because he's going to die right there. Seeing so many mud enemies, the hero realizes he needs to act fast to survive. He then activates his linking skill, causing a magic seal to glow on his hand. He combines gravity manipulation with fireball, creating a flaming meteor. Ashiya is impressed, finding it interesting that he can not only use, but combine skills. With a malicious look, he says he'd love to examine Kuki's body and makes a decision. He then takes out a syringe, warning that he will add him to his puppet collection. But in fact, he injects the needle into himself, using the Mud Marionette skill. His body transforms instantly, becoming giant and muscular with the enhanced mud. Kuki is shocked by the change, and Ashiya explains that his mud also strengthens the living. To demonstrate his new power, he attacks the hero with a devastating blow. The protagonist defends himself with difficulty, thinking his mana might not last much longer. Ashiya taunts Kuki, asking what's wrong and saying his skills are better. Kuki then combines Future Sight with Absolute Barrier, defending against the blow. Ashiya feels the impact on his fist, finally understanding his opponent's ability. He realizes the hero has combined the Great Mage's skill with his own barrier. The automatic defense can read the future and block the attack before it hits. But Ashiya keeps attacking, saying Kuki's mana will run out first. The barrier begins to crack under the force of the blows, showing it won't last long. Suddenly, a new skill activates, creating a green energy barrier. The villain is surprised, wondering how he can use a third skill at the same time. Kuki holds firm, even though the effort is clearly wearing him down. Ashiya says he's impressed with his ability to predict, defend, and counterattack. Kuki asks what he is, and Ashiya decides to tell him the truth out of respect for his strength. He reveals that the end of the world is a ritual for monsters from another dimension, and for that to happen, these monsters gave magical power to the human world. The protagonist is in shock, beginning to understand the terrible truth behind it all. Ashiya confirms that they were the ones who gave this world magic, so they could devour it. He continues, explaining that people with magical power are a feast for the monsters. After all, magic was given to humans precisely so they could be devoured once they matured. Kuki then faces him and asks if he really agrees with such a plan. He yells that Ashiya is also human and asks if he's okay with being eaten by monsters. But with a wicked smile, Ashiya asks when he ever said he was human. This revelation leaves our protagonist completely speechless, in a state of total shock. Suddenly, the villain's body begins to contort, releasing a dark red energy. His eyes glow with a yellow light, showing his true monstrous nature. Then, wings of pure fire energy begin to emerge from his back. He takes off his glasses, and his face deforms into a smile full of sharp teeth. His legs also transform, becoming thicker and more beast-like. Kuki looks up, unable to believe what was happening right in front of him. The transformation is complete, revealing a giant, terrifying creature in the scientist's place. The hero is paralyzed with fear, staring at his enemy's true form. A voice from the past echoes, saying he will serve as bait for the attack. The scene flashes back to the past, showing Araki pushing Irori to use her as bait. She becomes desperate, asking what he's doing to her. He turns and declares that he is one of the 7 saviors, so he cannot die. Araki adds that he's worth much more than her, as Momo screams for her sister. Even as she's down, Irori tells Kuki to run, because the monster was already coming. Back in the present, the protagonist recognizes the appearance of that same creature. The monster says that the chosen ones will live on, devouring humans with the other monsters. Kuki falls to his knees, completely devastated by the dark truth. The creature then congratulates him for making it this far and bids him farewell with an attack. A beam of red energy is fired at full force toward our hero. Without any magic power, Kuki's body won't move, leaving him face to face with death. He realizes that using Future Sight has left him completely drained and vulnerable. On top of that, the absolute barrier consumed the rest of his mana far too quickly. The hero remembers this was an ancient magic, too powerful for him right now. Lying on the ground, he despairs for having reached his limit in a place like this. But he doesn't give up, screaming that he can't die, and tries to use the absolute barrier. The magic seal on his hand glows faintly, lacking the strength to activate the skill. As his hair changes color, he panics because the magic won't come out anymore. The monster's attack then slams into the ground, causing a massive explosion. The scene shifts to a few days ago, with Kuki asking what his true ability was. The librarian explains that his power was merely borrowed, which is why it had limits. She reveals that his original skill is actually far more powerful than that. Kuki is speechless, trying to understand that he has a hidden power of his own. With his eyes shining, he asks if there's a magic that is his and his alone. Excited, he wants to know how to use it, and she begins to explain the condition for activation. She reveals that to activate his skill, he needs to use 7 abilities at the same time. Kuki is shocked by the condition, finding it completely impossible to do. But the librarian explains that the skills he collected are the keys to this. The moment he uses all 7 for the first time, his crest will open. He repeats the number 7, still in disbelief that he needs so many active skills. The protagonist says the most he's ever managed to use was 2 at once. She agrees that he could use 3 in combat, but 7 would drain his mana instantly. With a calm smile, the librarian continues her explanation of his power. It's a magic that can only be used once, when his mana is at its absolute maximum. Back in the present, the monster attacks and Kuki tries to use the absolute barrier. He despairs when he sees the magic won't work because he has no energy left. With a look of pure determination, he focuses on trying to survive the blow. He begs for his magic power to return, even if just for a moment. As he screams for power, we see someone running towards him to save him. Suddenly, Kanai Momo shoves him away, taking the attack in his place. They both fall to the ground from the impact, narrowly escaping the explosion. Momo smiles in relief, but Kuki asks why she suddenly appeared. She gets angry and shows him her phone, saying he was the one who contacted her. He remembers, confirming that he sent her the Grand Mage's location. He sent the information as a precaution, but now he screams for her to get away. Kuki realizes the enemy is far more dangerous than he previously imagined. He warns her that he's out of magic and can't move, so it's dangerous for her to fight. At that moment, Momo prepares a fireball, concentrating the magic in her hands, but she turns and places her hands on his chest, making Kuki cry out in surprise. The monster finds the scene beautiful, enjoying their desperate struggle. Suddenly, a purple energy begins to envelop our protagonist's body. She reveals her skill, Healing Fireball, and says she would never abandon a friend. Kuki feels his magic power recovering, shocked by the new sensation. Momo then asks if, with his mana back, he can defeat that monster. Surprised, he wants to know when she learned to use this type of magic. She says a lot has happened, recalling all the dangers she faced alone. Momo then says she'll tell him everything after he defeats that ugly monster. The creature recognizes the rare healing magic and vows to add it to its collection. Kuki thanks her for her help, feeling his strength surging back into his body. He remembers his past, thinking how different things are now. Back then, he couldn't use magic, and got beaten up by everyone at school. The protagonist is no longer the boy who always needed to be saved by his sister. He remembers his determination to change and never go through that again. Now he has companions he can trust, looking firmly at Momo, and most importantly, he has finally awakened a magic that is his alone. But the monster says it's useless, as its body gains immunity to magic. It also has super regeneration, and can only be defeated with a single blow. The villain boasts that none of their skills can beat it in one shot. With that, it prepares another energy attack, ready to end the fight. Kuki then activates several skills, combining them all into gravity manipulation. He activates Thorn User, Fireball, electronic hacking, and the Fuma Beast. Then, the hero adds Absolute Barrier and Mud Puppet to the combination. The monster screams that it's no use, firing an energy beam at them, but the barrier holds, protecting Kuki and Momo from the devastating attack. The villain is outraged, finding it impossible for a human to block such power. Suddenly, it sees the black crest on Kuki's hand, recognizing the ancient magic. As his hair turns blue, the protagonist declares he will defeat the creature right here, right now. He then declares that he will save the world as he prepares to use his first skill. With his eyes glowing white, Kuki unleashes his original magic, Vanta Black. Amidst the smoke, Miki Mirai watches the outcome of the battle, seeing Kyugi Arashiho on the ground. The big guy can barely believe it, muttering that it was impossible before finally passing out completely. Kuki celebrates with a smile, thanking Kanai Momo for helping him win. But suddenly, a dark and sinister energy explodes from within his body. He feels a terrible pain and falls to his knees, as Momo worriedly shouts his name. Kuki looks at his hand and sees a strange symbol, wondering what ancient magic it was. We are told that this is an extinct magic that doesn't awaken in modern humans. Only the great mage or someone who has read an ancient grimoire could use it, and it takes a toll on the body. Just then, the librarian appears in a flashback, revealing that Kuki's original skill is much stronger. Kuki is confused, not knowing how to use his own magic or if that's what she was talking about. Kanai Momo runs to him and asks if he's okay, seeing the boy sitting on the ground. Determined, Kuki thinks that he needs to master this power to become even stronger. The scene cuts to his past life, where he's staring at his phone in complete shock. The news on the screen announced that the Great Mage had disappeared, leaving him baffled. The disappearance of Number 4 and the Great Mage was news that shook the entire world. The scene changes, showing Ashiya Hikaru in chains while being interrogated as the prime suspect. The one in charge of the interrogation is Number 3, Police Chief Igawe Himeka. She approaches and asks ironically if he isn't in the mood to talk yet, but Ashiya remains silent, just giving a small, bruised smirk. Himeka accuses him, saying his sludge was found on the Great Mage's body. She also questions why he was found lying pathetically on the ground. With a mocking tone, he simply replies, "Who knows?" leaving her very irritated. Seeing she won't get anywhere, Igawe decides to use force to make him confess. She summons a bunch of weapons and warns that she's going to see how long his tough act lasts. With that, she attacks him mercilessly, saying she can finally use her powers. The woman gives a cruel smile, saying she'll start the torture with his abdomen. Even while taking a beating, Ashiya praises her attack, saying it wasn't bad at all. Then, the scene cuts to a morgue, with Kuki staring at a covered body. With a sad look, he says in a low voice that he finally managed to avenge him. On the gurney lay the body of Kyugi, the man the protagonist had defeated. Lying on the floor, Kuki is startled to see a glowing book appear out of nowhere. He recognizes the grimoire he copied from Ashiya, wondering why it appeared now. The first ability was to control bodies, but the second was Soul Doll. Kuki is shocked to realize he can revive someone's soul as a doll. He realizes he can bring Kyugi back, since he was killed by the puppet. The boy considers the chance a failure, but quickly decides he has to try anyway. With great determination, he places his hand on the body and activates the Soul Doll skill. A golden energy envelops the body, and a small version of Kyugi appears on the gurney. Then, the man's original body begins to turn to dust and disappears completely. Kuki just watches in silence, waiting to see if the spell worked. The small doll stirs and opens its eyes, looking very confused by the situation. Sitting there, the mini Kyugi looks around and asks where the hell he is. He then faces the protagonist and asks if he's Ikuta, not understanding why he's so small. Kuki gets super emotional and hugs the doll tightly, who yells for him to let go. The scene cuts to Kanai Momo, who wakes up and stretches, completely happy and oblivious to everything. The next day, Momo was playing with the Kyugi doll in the park, thinking he was very cute, but he gets annoyed and climbs onto her head, yelling at her not to touch him. Even in that form, the old man kept his usual tough attitude, with his arms crossed. He comments that he never imagined the two rookies were keeping so many important secrets. Kyugi says the world was rotten to the core, including Ashiya and the Great Mage. Kuki then remembers that to stop the end of the world, they need to defeat thousands of monsters. Furthermore, Kyugi warns that there could be many others like Ashiya out there. At that, Momo becomes determined to improve her skills to be more helpful in battles. Seeing her, Kuki gets curious and asks where she learned that healing ability. With a smile, Momo begins to explain to him how everything happened recently. The scene shifts to a flashback, where she says she met Suzaki Irori at a crepe shop. She explains that the mysterious girl helped her train her fire ability. In Momo's eye, we see the reflection of a phoenix, the source of her power. During the training, Irori interrupts her and says she was using the skill the wrong way. To demonstrate, Irori summons a powerful blue flame, leaving Momo completely surprised. Irori explains that her blue flames reveal the true nature of people's skills. She says that Momo's fireball isn't for attacking, but is actually a healing ability. Momo is completely shocked by the revelation, unable to believe what she just heard. After that, she says she practiced non-stop to master the new healing power, and so she finally managed to master the skill, showing the result to Kuki. But Kuki is confused, because he also copied the fireball and can't do the same thing. Just then, the small Kyugi says it's probably a reverse ability, piquing his curiosity. He explains that skills have a front and a back side, just like coins. The lucky side can turn into bad luck, and the reverse side only appears after a long time of use. Just as Momo's skill changed, the reverse of his barrier is a super strong attack. Kuki then realizes that his own ability must also have a hidden reverse side. Suddenly, a strange vision appears, showing a black hole above a building. A scene flows into his head, revealing two guys in uniform in a dark place. He despairs upon seeing his older sister on the ground, seemingly in danger. Kuki snaps back to reality and shouts for her, startling Momo. Kuki looks frightfully at his hand, which glows with the mark of the ancient magic. He realizes it was the power of the future sight skill that made him see that. Without a second thought, he runs off desperately, saying he needs to go now. The only thing on the boy's mind was that his older sister was in grave danger. As they run through the city, Momo asks if he really saw the future, and Kuki confirms. The vision showed that same hospital, with the two mysterious guys watching from a distance. He runs desperately, knowing that if things continue this way, the vision will come true. The face of his sleeping sister wouldn't leave his mind, reinforcing the danger. With that in mind, he picks up the pace, thinking his sister is going to die. And just like that, the dark portal opens in the sky, exactly as he predicted. The younger, more energetic guy looks excited and calls his partner for a fight, but the other one cuts him off, saying not now, because they have work to do. The scene then shows Kuki's sister, Miki Mirai, sleeping in her hospital bed. Just then, the two villains enter through the room's window, floating silently. The leader approaches and tells Miki that he's finally come to get her. He picks her up in his arms and flies away, while his partner complains that the job is boring. Right at that moment, Kuki arrives and yells for them to wait. Seeing the scene from afar, the protagonist then begins to float, rising until he's face to face with the kidnappers. He prepares a containment skill, combining gravity with his fireball to attack. Kuki unleashes his meteor shower skill with full force, mercilessly attacking the enemies, but the younger villain just points a finger and makes the attack stop in midair. With a simple gesture, he makes all the meteors explode before they can get close. Kuki is completely shocked, unable to believe the enemy's absurd strength. Seeing his reaction, the guy asks what the problem is, with a mocking tone. Furious, Kuki screams at them to give his sister back right now. The leader then comments that he arrived very quickly, almost as if he had foreseen everything. The protagonist glares at them and angrily asks who the hell they are. The light-haired villain senses the magical power and asks if it was Miki who used the regression. He then smiles and questions if it was Kuki who defeated Ashiya as well. Kuki becomes furious and demands to know what they know, asking if they're Ashiya's allies. His partner gets annoyed and shouts that they would never be allies with that pathetic loser. Understanding the situation, Kuki prepares to attack again, saying he's going to get his sister back. But the leader warns that Miki is an important key for them too. With that, the villain simply snaps his fingers, ready to do something. Just then, a giant, bizarre demon appears behind the villains, changing the course of the fight. From below, Momo and Kyugi look up and see monsters coming out of the hole. The old man is shocked, as monsters appearing like this in the middle of the city was unheard of. To make matters worse, their aura was absurd, indicating they were all S rank or higher. Kuki faces the two of them, certain they are directly connected to the end of the world. The image of various monsters destroying everything only confirms our hero's suspicion. Suddenly, Kusano appears out of nowhere and attacks one of the creatures with his spikes. Kuki ignores the help and yells at the villains that he won't forgive them if they hurt his sister, but the leader reveals with a smile that Miki isn't his real sister. The protagonist is speechless, completely lost and unable to understand what he meant. The villain then explains that Miki is one of their comrades, leaving Kuki even more confused. He reveals that her real job is, in fact, to completely destroy this world. Kuki is in total shock from the revelation, unable to process the information properly. The leader's partner starts laughing, finding it hilarious that they were playing siblings. With a dark look, Kuki loses his patience and tells them to stop the nonsense. A flashback shows Kuki remembering his sister, who would lovingly help him study. The image of her gentle smile was the only thing that mattered to him. Back in the present, he refuses to believe it and screams that she is his sister. With that, he activates all the skills he has copied, preparing for a massive attack. Even the mud puppet is added, fusing all the powers into a single mass of energy. He then unleashes his first skill, Extreme Dark Light, with all his might. The attack hits one of the villains head-on, who seems to be caught by surprise. The energy is so strong that the guy is simply thrown far away by the impact. From below, Momo and Kyugi are dumbfounded, unable to believe Kuki's power. The protagonist watches intently, waiting to see the result of his devastating blow. But to everyone's surprise, the villain reappears without a single scratch. Kuki is in shock as his full power attack did absolutely nothing. The villain starts to laugh and shows that he also has a crest of ancient magic. Kuki looks at his hand and realizes they are the same, leaving him completely speechless. The guy gets excited and says his hands are tingling, ready for a real fight. Excited, the villain decides he's going to play with Kuki, but his partner stops him. But it seems the fight won't happen, as the backlash from the power paralyzes the protagonist. Momo screams his name, extremely worried if he can really use such dangerous magic. He tries to reach them again, but the pain in his body prevents him from moving. With a smile, the leader says goodbye and tells them not to worry, as they will see each other again. Just then, the villains disappear into the portal, and Kuki, drained of strength, begins to plummet from the sky. As he falls, he can only think of his sister, with Momo screaming from below. The symbol on his hand starts to fade, and he passes out, calling her name. In a flashback, Miki Mirai encourages Kuki, telling him to never give up, but her image twists into a nightmare, with a sinister and terrifying smile. Kuki jolts awake, completely terrified and confused about what just happened. He looks around and realizes he's in a hospital room, with Kanai Momo by his side. She explains that he passed out and it was dangerous, but her healing magic saved him. Then, Kuki remembers he has to rescue his sister, shouting that she is not their ally. He tries to jump out of bed, but his whole body aches from his injuries. Kanai stops him immediately, telling him he can't fight in such a deplorable state. With tears in her eyes, she warns him that using that skill again could be fatal. Besides, she reminds him that even his desperate magic didn't work against their enemies. But Kuki insists, worried about what might happen to his sister if he does nothing. Suddenly, the small creature shouts that he's a fool and can't save her like this. He then advises Kuki to first learn about his skill and how to use it safely, because if he can't increase its power, rescuing his sister will be impossible. Kuki repeats the small creature's words and suddenly has a great idea. Kanai Momo has a brilliant idea and says she knows the right person to help. The scene changes, and Igawa Himeka bursts into a meeting, shouting Ikuta Kuki's name. Jumon Seijiro hears the report and calmly concludes that the rumors were true. Himeka then declares this is a violation and that they will arrest Kuki immediately. But Seijiro interrupts her, saying this task is his, as he was the one who invited the boy. Sage Tetsu gets angry and asks if he's sure, but Seijiro tells him to do as he pleases. With that, Sage Tetsu stands up and leaves the room, leaving Seijiro alone with his thoughts. A teacher appears with a sinister smile, saying he hates arrogant newcomers like Kuki. His face shows pure malice as he decides he's going to finish the boy right then and there. Far away, Sage Tetsu is also preparing, as a dark energy covers his fist. He stares at his own hand with red and black power flowing, ready for action. Back in the garden, Kanai Momo clasps her hands and asks for help checking Kuki's skill. She makes the request to Suzaki Irori, who seems surprised but agrees as a favor to her. Irori says she was just relaxing, but agrees to help in exchange for a delicious crepe. Overjoyed, Kanai hugs Irori tightly, thanking her friend profusely for her help. Kuki is surprised that Irori is helping, and comments that she and Momo seem very close. Then Irori begins the spell, casting a blue flame towards Kuki to analyze him. But the flame in her hand turns black and unstable, leaving the girl in a state of shock. Kane asks what happened, and Irori explains that she can't see anything but darkness. She concludes that his skill is incomprehensible, showing a dark and overwhelming power. Seeing that it didn't work, Irori decides that Kuki himself will have to see his ability. With that, she changes tactics and conjures a new spell, the powerful green flame. The girl explains that this fire makes anyone who stares at it dive into their own mind. She tells Kuki to look deep inside so he can see his skill with his own eyes. His eyes glow intensely, and the magic starts taking effect instantly. Suddenly, he wakes up in a strange place and wonders if it's the library. He thinks it's the image of his skill, but feels something is wrong and sees a body on the floor. Startled, he recognizes the fallen librarian and sees a mysterious figure further in the back. The figure turns and asks if he came to learn about his ability, making Kuki tense. Then, the shadow reveals itself, and says that he is his former self, the old Kuki. The past version explains that he's from when Kuki had no skill and was bullied. Kuki is shocked to realize it's his middle school self, who calls him lucky. Then, his other self reveals that he didn't awaken just any skill, but the best one possible. Fallen on the ground, the librarian tries to say the name of the skill, but can barely move. Suddenly, she is violently thrown aside, with no chance to finish her sentence. Kuki is paralyzed by the scene, while the other reveals that his skill is creation. Holding a book, he says this is the power of the world's first ancestral magic. The protagonist remains in shock from the revelation, unable to process the information. It's explained that creation manifests the user's desires, changing form with their will. His former self says that the copied skills were just the phase for collecting magical materials. Now, he asks what Kuki wants to do, and what kind of magic he wishes to create. The boy hesitates, and his other self points out that he has always been envious of others' power. He shows images of others, reminding Kuki that he always wished he had their skills. The past version faces him and asks if he doesn't want to become stronger than everyone else, because otherwise, he'll never have enough power to save his sister. A dark and powerful energy begins to manifest, and he says that Kuki can surpass himself. His other self states that he already has this power, he just needs to truly desire it. With that, Kuki focuses his desire and creates his second skill, the fearsome, sinister eye. The dark energy spreads quickly, corrupting all the bookshelves in the library. The past version laughs, celebrating that he's no longer a manaless failure. He explains that all the books and spells appearing now belong to Kuki. Enveloped by this aura, Kuki awakens his true potential, becoming a demon king. The scene flashes back a bit, showing Irori's ritual to analyze Kuki. The young man stares blankly, completely immersed in the green magic surrounding him. Kanai grows worried. Kuki seems to be in pain, and she prays for his safe return. But suddenly, a golden bolt of lightning strikes the ground, violently interrupting the process. To protect them, the small creature summons an absolute barrier, surprising Kanai. Just then, Sumon Seijiru appears and strikes the barrier with an energy-filled blow. The impact is so strong that the shield shatters, throwing the small creature backward. He smirks, commenting that as expected of Kyugi, the barrier was quite tough. The girls are in shock when they see a new hexagonal shield has protected the group. Seijiru then faces them, saying the seven saviors have stooped so low lately. The small Kyugi asks what he wants, and Seijiru announces he's come to apprehend Ikuta. With an evil smile, he apologizes in advance in case he accidentally kills the boy. Kyugi yells for the girls to take care of Ikuta and charges at the enemy with everything he's got. But at the last second, the old man simply vanishes into thin air, leaving Kyugi confused. The blow hits nothing, and he's stunned by his opponent's incredible speed. Kyugi is hit several times and complains that he can't keep up with his movements. Just then, Seijiru reveals his skill is speed of light, impossible to see with the naked eye. He lands a powerful blow, saying the little one is no match for him. But Kyugi gets up, determined, remembering that Ikuta saved his life once. With all his might, he screams that he won't let Ikuta be killed no matter what. Suddenly, a dark aura erupts from Kuki's body as he begins to float in the air. Irori and Kanai turn in shock, realizing he has finally awoken from his trance. The young man continues to levitate, surrounded by dark energy, activating his second ability. His power is fully revealed, and its name is announced, Extreme Black Eye. Kanai is speechless, as the activation of that skill unleashed an absurd amount of pressure. The girls feel their strength draining away and wonder what's happening. Seijiru is also affected, and understands that the skill copies the powers of everyone around it. Furthermore, it continuously and overwhelmingly absorbs all their magical power. Kyugi collapses to the ground, weakened, and asks Ikuta what all this power is. The scene pans out, showing that the ability is even affecting normal people in the city. Kyugi yells at Ikuta, asking what he's doing and accusing him of stealing power. With a cold gaze, the protagonist simply replies that he already knows, leaving Kyugi shocked. He explains that it's all useless if he's not strong enough to save his sister. For that, he raises a fist bearing a strange mark, saying he needs to get stronger. Ikuta then declares that he will use everyone's power to become the strongest of all. Desperate, Kanai screams his name, pleading for him to stop this madness right now. But Seijiru just laughs, commenting that, just as he thought, the boy is extremely dangerous. At that, he decides he has no choice but to eliminate Kuki right here, right now. He swallows several pills, an item that boosts magical power by over 100 times. His eyes glow with a golden energy, showing his power has increased immensely. With all his might, he unleashes a devastating attack, screaming for the boy to die. He lunges forward with his hand glowing, ready to deliver the final blow to Ikuta Kuki. But the attack is stopped in midair, and the old man can't believe what he's seeing. Kuki glares down at him and warns that he won't let a false savior like him lay a finger on him. With that, dark portals begin to open in the sky, showing his new power. Multiple attacks shoot out from the portals at once, hitting Seijiro with different kinds of magic. He's caught in the blast and screams in pain as he's thrown backward. But as he falls, he senses a new energy forming and is completely taken aback. Kuki then activates his first skill, Extreme Black Light, and fires a powerful beam. The light hits the old man dead on, who screams again from the force of the impact. With that, his body is left covered in blood as Kuki watches him, still floating. Kyugi is in shock, as Kuki used the attack without suffering any kind of recoil. Irori then deduces that he offset the damage with the magic he stole from everyone. Kanai looks at him sadly and asks if this was the answer he found. She yells that getting strong this way isn't like the real Kuki at all. The young man just watches her in silence, with a completely empty and distant gaze. Seeing this, Kyugi warns that it's no use, that her words won't reach him. Kuki then states that he will find his sister, as he can feel her power within him. He closes his eyes for a moment, concentrating to follow the trail of magic. With a smile, he opens his eyes and says that he's finally found her. With his arm raised amidst the darkness, Kuki declares that he is going to save his sister. Seeing the portal, the group is shocked, and Kyugi tries to say they'll go with him, but Kuki coldly cuts him off, saying he doesn't need them and that they'll just get in the way. His coldness stuns Kanai, and she screams desperately for him to stop. He then steps into the dark portal, ignoring the desperate Kanai who is left behind. Just then, she reaches out her hand in a last-ditch effort, yelling that she won't let him go alone. With that, Kanai and Kyugi are pulled into the portal, leaving Irori behind. Suddenly, Irori realizes she's not alone, as Sagai Tetsu appears right behind her. With a serious and intimidating gaze, he looks down on her, ready for a new fight. In a destroyed hall, two men watch a girl's body lying on an altar. One of them smiles, finding it incredible that the guy was actually using reversal magic. Then the other laments that she not only escaped, but also took the book. He thinks the girl who got away is a real problem, but the ritual is still going, and with the magic in Mickey's body, he's going to... Suddenly, the silver-haired man senses something, leaving his partner completely confused. It's Kuki, coming down the stairs, and a voice sarcastically tells him to give them a warm welcome. Kanai Momo appears, desperate, begging Kuki to wait and calm down to listen. But in the blink of an eye, a dark energy explodes with a violent sound. She and her little pet stand frozen, surprised by what just happened. The blonde man appears, shrouded in power, saying that Kuki came straight to their world. Kuki just stares at the situation in silence, showing no reaction to his enemy. The guy gets excited and says this is perfect, immediately lunging at him with everything he's got. He gets right up close, saying he's been dying to play with Kuki. With a strike full of energy, he attacks our hero with a smile on his face. The blow lands a direct hit, but the villain doesn't stop there. He explains that his skill, Spatial Bypass, allows him to skip through space and hit his target. With that, he attacks again, saying it's impossible to dodge, and that he's going to beat him to a pulp. The guy continues the assault, asking if the hits are too fast for him. But suddenly, he notices something strange and gets pissed off. Kuki doesn't even move as he takes the beating, leaving his enemy completely stunned. Then our hero catches the blow and demands he return his sister now. He activates Absolute Black Light, and a bizarre energy erupts against the villain. The guy can barely withstand the pressure, realizing Kuki's aura is stronger. Kuki creates a sphere of light and simply crushes it with his bare hands. The impact sends the enemy flying into the ground, with no chance to defend himself. Without wasting a second, Kuki prepares another blow to finish the job for good, and he lands a full-force punch right in the face of his fallen opponent. The blow is so brutal it sends the guy's blood flying everywhere. All beaten up, the villain can only curse Kuki, calling him a bastard. The villain doesn't get it because last time Kuki could barely handle this power. Kuki just keeps staring at his enemy with a serious look, without saying a word. Suddenly, he lands another blow, and the shockwave even hits Kanai. The guy realizes his magic is being drained, accusing Kuki of stealing his power. With this new energy, the protagonist feels that all this power is simply incredible. Kanai Momo stands there, just watching Kuki with a worried look on her face. The scene cuts to a montage of brutal fighting, with blood splattering everywhere. In the end, the villain is on the ground, completely wrecked, but still glaring at the hero. Kuki then asks where his sister is, but the guy says she's now one of Mobius. Little Kyugi gets angry, and the villain confirms that Mobius is the group's name. He explains that they are 5 warriors born to maintain order in that world. Kanai is shocked to hear that they are warriors who protect their world. Just then, Ashiya appears, explaining that their job is to ensure the ritual works. Kyugi is left speechless, understanding that they were controlling the end of the world. But Kuki cuts the conversation short, saying he doesn't care. He turns to Kanai, then gives the villain 5 seconds to say where his sister is, or he'll kill him. Then, Kuki begins the countdown, increasing the pressure on the guy lying on the floor. But out of nowhere, Kanai rushes in and grabs his face to stop him. The protagonist is completely shocked, not understanding why she would do such a thing. She yells at him, asking how he can say he doesn't care about anything. She reminds him that he came all this way to stop the end of the world and protect everyone. Kanai accuses him of taking his sister's power and now not caring if others get hurt. She says the Kuki she knows, his skill was never evil. This isn't him. Then, a pink aura explodes around her as she screams that she isn't the savior. A voice appears in Kuki's head, asking what kind of mage he wants to be. The scene changes to a flashback, with a woman asking what kind of skill he wanted to have. Little Kuki excitedly replies that he wanted the strongest one there is. She then asks what he would do if he had such a powerful ability. He gets a little thoughtful, but quickly answers that he'd use it to protect his sister. The woman thanks him with a smile, but says that can't be all, leaving him confused. She explains to him that someone with great power also has to protect everyone. Even without knowing what skill he'll get, she's sure he'll be a strong mage. The scene shifts, showing a hero saying that he wants the person to help anyone. He continues, saying that this kind of power must be used to save people. Little Kuki gets super excited and asks if she thinks he can be a savior. Stroking his head, she replies with absolute certainty that yes, he can. And she adds that he will succeed, as long as he never gives up. Back in the present, Kuki is paralyzed, remembering that entire conversation from his past. The light in his eyes changes, showing that those memories deeply affected him. Out of nowhere, he punches Kanai hard in the stomach, and she screams in pain from the attack. The villain notices Kuki's magic has vanished, and tells his partner to attack now. So the guy charges forward and starts mercilessly beating our hero. In the end, Kuki is on the floor, completely battered, while the villain stands over him victorious. Kuki appears, asking what he's doing just standing there. The boy warns him that at this rate, he's definitely going to lose the fight. Kuki thinks he needs more mana to save his sister, but he immediately dismisses the thought. The vision of his younger self is confused, not understanding the hero's response. He remembers how he used to want power, how he was jealous of others' skills and wanted to be the strongest. But what he really wanted was to become a mage his sister would be proud of, someone who fights for others, just like Mickey always did for everyone. A mage who protects the people important to him, just like his sister does for everyone. Kuki yells that if he's not that kind of mage, he won't have the guts to face her. He promised his sister he would protect the world and be everyone's savior. Suddenly, a bizarre headache overwhelms him, making him scream. The scene changes, and Kuki is now in a white place that looks like a library. Just then, the librarian of his skill appears before him, surprising the hero. She explains that the creation skill changes form, and that he has finally understood it. A blue aura envelops Kuki, and he realizes this is his true skill. The librarian hands him a book, saying it's the world's first skill and asks for a name. The scene shifts back to reality, with Kuki on the ground, bloodied and defeated. Kanai screams his name, and the hero slowly begins to get up. The villain is shocked, unable to believe Kuki can still stand. With his eyes closed, a voice in our hero's mind begins to name his skill. He opens his eyes, glowing blue, and declares its name is Light of Salvation. The guy doesn't get it, since he can't sense any mana and thinks it's just a bluff. Kuki explains that his mana is at 0, but the villain scoffs at his excuse. The enemy then prepares to attack, yelling that he'll kill him and the other weaklings. But an absurd amount of mana explodes from Kuki, leaving the villain shocked by the power. The hero explains that this is the savior's magic, and it only activates to protect someone. And when it's to protect his friends, his mana simply flows without end. The villain freaks out, screaming that infinite mana is impossible, and attacks with everything he's got. Kuki, however, easily blocks all of the guy's attacks. The enemy is speechless, as his space-bending attacks no longer hit him. Kuki says he has finally figured out the guy's skill, leaving the villain completely stunned. He explains that any skill his eyes see can never hit him again. The villain is furious at how cheap that is, but Kuki already has his hand in front of him. With a single touch, he unleashes a bluish energy that instantly paralyzes the enemy. The guy is in shock, caught in an instant by a completely unknown power. The surprise is so great that the villain's eye even glows with the intensity of the magic. From a distance, his partner notices the white sigil, a never-before-seen magic attribute. Kuki then reveals that this is the attribute of light, his own unique power. He prepares to attack with full force, unleashing the power of his first skill. The attack is a blast of energy called pure white light. With that, a pillar of light descends with full force, hitting the villain head-on. In the end, the guy is on the ground, defeated, and Kuki stands victorious. The scene cuts back to the other villain, who was still observing Mickey's body on the altar. His eyes widen, completely shocked by what he just witnessed. Seeing Kuki with his friends, he realizes his partner has been utterly defeated. A new villainess appears, finding it pathetic that one of her partners lost to a human. Just then, a skeleton appears beside her, asking if they should slice Kuki up now. She says she'll still need some time there, and asks the skeleton to handle the situation. Meanwhile, Kanai Momo hugs Kuki, overjoyed that he's finally back to his senses. She remarks that he's gained an insane power again, and he thanks them both. Kuki smiles and thanks Momo for reminding him of what was truly important. She replies with a big grin, saying she did it because they're his comrades. Overwhelmed with emotion, our hero begins to cry tears of joy, agreeing with her. But the mood shifts, and Kuki says he can feel his sister's mana nearby. Kyugi becomes desperate, understanding this means danger is approaching. Kuki decides to go to his sister and asks his friends to return to their world now. But two new enemies appear, warning they won't let him interfere with their plans. Our hero is surprised, not expecting more villains to show up out of nowhere. The girl, Noroko, takes a picture, mocking how her partner got totally knocked out. Kyugi is furious at the scene and yells, asking who the hell they are. The skeleton, Hyobi, says they don't need to know, because they're going to die right here. Kuki senses their mana, and the villains tell them to die without any hard feelings. The girl gives a sinister smile, asking if they aren't going to interrupt the ritual. Worried, our hero prepares to fight, the sigil glowing in his hand. Just then, little Kyugi stomps his foot on the ground, activating his own ability. He creates an absolute barrier to trap the two villains inside. With that, he yells for Kuki to go on ahead, as they'll hold the pair off. Kuki hesitates, unsure if he should really leave his friends behind, but Kanai yells for him to go, telling him he needs to save his sister as fast as possible. He then makes up his mind and, with a determined look, thanks his two friends deeply. The opening Kyugi created in the barrier only lasted for a few seconds, but that was more than enough time for our hero to escape. He flies past, but the villainess warns him that he's not going anywhere. But a blast of fire appears, and a voice says that's not going to happen. Kanai and Kyugi get ready, saying that now their opponents are the two of them. The skeleton finds it all annoying, and the girl scoffs, doubting they can win. Kyugi admits that before this power, they wouldn't have stood a chance. He asks Kanai if she can feel the energy too, and she immediately confirms it. It's explained to us that Kuki's skill, the Light of Salvation, is a power that gives. Thus the mages he copies also receive a portion of his infinite mana. So Kyugi braces himself, yelling that he'll accept this power from Ikuta, with everything he's got. Kanai fills with power, warning that they won't let them lay a finger on Kuki. Amidst the destruction, Kuki flies forward, leaving a trail of devastation behind him. But suddenly, a bizarre creature appears, a red energy dragon right in front of him. He realizes the situation is tricky and activates a power in his hand. It's his skill, Light of Salvation, which adds the light attribute to all his spells. Even as he attacks, Kuki feels something isn't right about this battle. He can sense his sister's mana, but he can't get close to her at all. Then, Kuki remembers she's with Mobius Noroko and the skeleton, Mobius Hyobi. His thoughts reveal that Kanai Momo and Kyugi are holding off the enemies for now. The scene shifts, and Mobius Noroko taunts, asking the skeleton who they should kill first. Out of nowhere, Sagai Tetsu appears, and Suzaki Irori is startled to see there are three enemies. Sumon Seijiru is in shock, and asks what the hell Sagai is doing there. Sagai then clenches his fist and starts to remember what happened the other day. A flashback begins at the medical center, when he was undergoing some tests. At that moment, he recalls feeling a strange presence right behind him, and that's when a dark energy started to emerge from his arm for the first time. He explains that deep within that strange space, a malevolent presence was waiting for him. That's where the person who cursed him is, and that's why he's rushing to deal with it. Suzaki Irori is shocked to hear the word, and asks if he's talking about a curse. With a wicked smile, Mobius Noroko confirms he's spot on, making everyone tense. Behind her, the Phantom Beast doll emerges, a terrifying SSS-class monster. Mobius positions herself confidently, completely surrounded by a red power aura. With this, Sage feels the curse in his body and clutches his chest in great pain. She reveals that the girl uses the strongest curse, and Sage asks why she cursed him. Mobius then explains that she saw the future, where his world was filled with mana and monsters. Sumon Seijiru turns pale, realizing she's talking about the end of the world, but she continues, explaining that in that future, there was a guy who was a problem. Then, she points directly at Sage and says that guy was him. She says he was so strong it was scary, which is why she placed a curse on him. That way, in 5 years, he wouldn't be able to fight at full strength, becoming much weaker. Suzaki Irori is shocked by the revelation, unsure how to react to all this madness. Suzaki Irori laments not being able to save him, while Kuki seems to understand the whole situation. Mobius mocks Sagai, saying her presence makes the curse hurt even more. At this, Sumon Seijiru understands the strategy and tells Sagai to retreat immediately. Suddenly, Kyugi activates the absolute barrier, surprising the enemies with his technique. Sumon then warns that the dome won't open until someone inside is knocked out. With a smirk, Mobius Naroko realizes they're trying to split the group up to fight. Kyugi apologizes to Sagai, thinking that even with Kuki's power, the fight is difficult. Koki knows that fighting both of them at the same time will be very tricky for him and Kanai, so he tells Sagai he's leaving the skeleton to him so he can focus on Mobius. The skeleton, Mobius Hyobi, wastes no time and draws his katana to start the fight. Sagai creates a blue energy sword, and the two clash in a powerful attack. The collision of their blades creates an explosion of power, mixing the red and blue auras. Even while cursed, Sege manages to block the skeleton's strike with his absurd strength. Mobius Hyobi is impressed and says that out of respect, he'll give him a warning. He explains that his blade shatters magic, and a single scratch can be fatal. The warning is clear. If the blade touches him, he'll die instantly, making Sage tense. On the other side, Mobius activates an ancient magic with a very confident smile on her face. The technique is revealed and the giant doll opens a massive cursed eye in their direction. It's explained that anyone who looks into the doll's eyes will have their body destroyed by the curse. At that, Kanai and Kyugi are caught, and a dark energy begins to trap them both. Mobius then mocks them, asking if it hurts and telling them to just give up and die. But Kyugi is unfazed, and with a shout, he uses his strength to break free from the curse. The villain is shocked to see the curse didn't work, and he explains why. He explains that his body is just a clay doll, a vessel with no real physical form. Kyugi then asks if Kanai can still fight, and she answers yes, with determination. She uses the healing phoenix fireball, and a fiery phoenix dispels the curse. Mobius can't believe it, and wonders how it was possible for her to cancel the curse. Kanai explains she could never heal herself before, but thanks to Ikuta, now she can. The villain finds this all very amusing and says that since curses don't work, she'll use brute force and orders her SSS-class monster to attack with full power. Kyugi yells for Kanai to attack with everything she's got, while he prepares a rock. She concentrates, thinking she also wants to be useful to Kuki in this fight. Kyugi remembers he promised to handle this part, and a true man keeps his word. Then, Kanai combines her techniques, creating a gigantic fire tornado against the monster, and Kyugi uses the absolute barrier's slab breaker, shattering the rock with one blow. The attacks combine and cause a huge explosion that completely engulfs the enemy. After the dust settles, the monster is defeated, and Mobius Naroko falls to the ground, powerless. Kanai and a very tired Kyugi stand tall, victorious amidst all the destruction. On the other side of the barrier, Mobius Hyobi realizes that Naroko has lost the fight. Sumon Seijiru then apologizes to Kuki and says he's counting on him for the rest. Kuki thanks him and says he hasn't felt the power of this light in a long time. With a smile, Suman tells him to show them his true power, and Kuki prepares to unleash the strength of the strongest man in all of humanity. Mobius Hyobi decides to start things over, summoning several bizarre monsters to attack them. Kanai Momo panics at the sight of the creatures, screaming, "What is that monster?" But Sagai isn't intimidated. He focuses, preparing to use one of his special abilities. He then activates absolute water temperature, striking his enemies with immense power. In an instant, the moisture in the air freezes, and all the monsters are completely destroyed. Suzaki Irori's jaw drops, saying Sage's power is simply incredible. Suman explains that the skill manipulates moisture, allowing it to freeze or burn everything around. The skeleton finds the ability terrifying, since water exists in all living beings. But he charges forward, yelling that it's different for him because he has no water. The battle resumes, and the two clash again in a stunning sword duel. The skeleton mocks him, saying the skill won't work, but Sege says he'll just cut him down. They then begin a super fast exchange of blows, their blades clashing in the air. Mobius Hyobi is surprised, admitting the title of strongest is no exaggeration, but he remembers Sege is just a human and leaps to deliver a deadly strike from above. Sege dodges with ease, leaving the skeleton shocked that he escaped. He explains that his finishing sword kills with a single touch, and that even a scratch is fatal. With an air of superiority, the skeleton warns that he won't miss his next strike. Sage remains silent for a moment, then says he'll start fighting seriously too. The skeleton is doubtful, but Sage confirms that his body has no moisture, but then he surprises him, saying that his body does as a fiery aura appears around him. With a determined look, Sage prepares to unleash a new ability. He gets into a battle stance, and steam begins to rise from his entire body. The skeleton is in shock and stammers, asking what the hell he's trying to do. Just then, Sage is revealed, completely engulfed in a boiling red energy. The skeleton finally understands, asking if he's boiling his own blood. Sage explains this makes him 3 times stronger, but it won't last long. So he warns that he's ending the fight right here and now, and charges forward with everything he's got. The skeleton is terrified by his absurd speed, unable to track his movement. He becomes desperate, thinking he can't even see Saga's blade moving. In a panic, he realizes this is nothing like before and tries to defend himself. The skeleton thinks the only thing he can do is block his attacks. Suzaki yells that he's too fast, and Kyugi says he can't see anything either. The exchange of blows continues at a ridiculous speed, sparks flying everywhere. Mobius Hyobi is in awe, praising Sage's incredible sword control. He thinks it looks like a true and impressive dance of blades. Sage keeps up the pressure, not giving his opponent a single second to rest. Suddenly, the skeleton spots an opening and tries to attack, but it's already too late. In the blink of an eye, Sage appears behind him and prepares the final blow with his sword. The attack is so fast it slices off the skeleton's head, who thinks the strike is magnificent. With his lifeless body falling to the ground, the fight finally comes to an end. But exhaustion hits Sage hard, and the effect of his power begins to fade. Suzaki Irori is shocked, realizing this is the power of the #1 in the rankings. Kyugi is also speechless, saying he can only find it all impressive. Sage then asks if they can move, but Kanai says not for a while. But suddenly, a bizarre giant creature appears, surprising everyone. Without giving it a chance, Sage uses his skill and completely freezes the bizarre monster. He then says this is a thank you for removing the curse from before. Kyugi finds it strange, commenting that it doesn't fit the cold man he is. The scene cuts back to Kuki, who is floating in the air with a very serious expression. He realizes that even with the barrier down, something is still very wrong. The more he moves forward, the farther his sister's mana seems to get from him. He understands this must be a skill, some kind of labyrinth trapping everyone inside. So he decides he'll just shatter the labyrinth with his light magic. The technique works, but he's horrified to see his sister lying on a strange altar. Kuki looks down in despair, screaming her name at the horrible sight. The mysterious man congratulates him, but warns that the ritual is almost complete. Filled with rage, Kuki unleashes his power and yells for him to give his sister back right now. With all his might, Kuki fires a powerful beam of light at the enemy, but the adversary just smirks, surrounded by a red aura. The attack hits him head-on, but the dark power begins to react. Kuki is shocked to realize his attack isn't working. Suddenly, all the energy from the attack is thrown back at Kuki himself. The enemy looks down on him, revealing that his attack was completely reflected. Fallen, Kuki sees Miki on an altar and shouts, demanding to know what the ritual is. Then, a voice states that the girl lying there is not his sister. The villain says with a sinister look that she is, in fact, their little sister. Kuki is left completely speechless, trying to process this bizarre information. Suddenly, he hears a familiar voice calling his name and is surprised. The voice was coming from Miki, and he wonders if it's really his sister. The enemy is startled that he can hear her, thinking she was unconscious. The voice then thanks Kuki for coming and apologizes for the confusion. And finally, she reveals that she was, in fact, a member of the Mobius organization. The scene changes to a flashback, where Miki explains that Mobius was made up of 5 warriors. She says she spent her time there as the youngest member of the group. It's revealed that their duty was to maintain the underworld where monsters lived, and also to send these creatures to other worlds, supporting a great invasion. But, over time, something about the mission began to bother her. She explains that deep down, she always questioned the orders she received. Miki wondered if that invasion was really the right thing to do. Hearing the screams coming from the abyss, she always felt that something was wrong. So one day she decided to tell everyone how she felt about it. With a smile, the group's leader told her not to think about unnecessary things. But Miki insisted, shouting that she no longer wanted to be part of the invasion. Enraged, Ginji strikes her and tells the girl to shut up and get to work. Fallen, the others surround her, reminding her that they had a mission given by him. The leader then warns that abandoning this mission was completely unforgivable. Young Miki lies on the floor, paralyzed with an expression of pure fear. With no other choice, Miki says she simply decided to flee from that place. She would run to another world where she could finally live in true peace. Using a last resort item, the Tome of Regression, she left the underworld behind, and so she arrived alone on a sunny path in a completely different world. Exhausted, she ends up fainting, but reveals that someone found her at that moment. The person who saved her was the woman who would become Kuki's mother. After that, we see in a flashback that the woman welcomed her into her home. The two formed a very strong bond, almost as if they were a real mother and daughter. The woman took care of her and raised her with all her love, as if she were her own daughter. And then, one day a big surprise happened, changing her life forever. It's revealed that Mickey's adoptive mother gave birth to a baby, little Cookie. She was very happy with the news, as she had always wanted a real family. She didn't want just a title, like the one she had with the Mobius members, but rather a real family, united by bonds of love and affection. Mickey finishes by saying that every day since she met Cookie has been very happy. We see scenes from the past, with their mother reading a story to little Cookie. In another memory, a teenage Mickey walked her little brother to school, holding hands. Every moment, like a simple game with water guns, became very special. Mickey thanks him for making her smile, and for making her feel like part of the family. With an innocent smile, little Cookie had fun, bonding with his sister. Back in the present, Cookie cries upon hearing the truth and Mickey's suffering. Even while lying down, she says he's grown up, but begs him to run away from there now. She warns him to be careful, as their leader, Roku, is very strong. But Cookie shouts that he can't do that, because his sister taught him a lesson. The scene changes, showing Mickey teaching him when he was just a boy. She would say with a smile that if he didn't give up, he could do anything. With his eyes shining, Cookie states that he will definitely go home with his sister. Then he unleashes a powerful blue aura and shouts that they will go back home, but Roku interrupts him, warning that this is a family problem and he should shut up. Not giving up, Cookie joins his hands and prepares another concentrated light attack. He then fires a pure white light, a powerful beam aimed at Roku, but the attack is reflected again, hitting Cookie head-on and knocking him to the ground. On the ground, he realizes he needs to be careful not to hit his sister. With that, he teleports and tries a surprise attack from behind the enemy, but it's no use as the beam of light is once again reflected back at him. Cookie realizes the light always comes back, so he decides to try a different strategy. He activates a containment skill, mixing gravity with a fireball. The flaming rocks fly toward Roku, who doesn't even move to dodge. But the attack is reflected and hits Cookie himself, who screams in pain from the impact. Roku stares him down, asking if he understands that no attack will ever hit him. Cookie wonders what kind of ability this is, since he must be using something. The problem is, no matter how many times he looks, he can't copy the skill. With a smile, Roku warns him that the more he attacks, the more he'll get hurt. He finishes by saying the ritual will be over soon, so he'd better stay quiet. Cookie shouts, demanding to know what they're going to do to his sister in that ritual. Roku then reveals they are trying to revive the great wizard Zero in this era. Confused, Cookie asks who Zero is, and learns he is the progenitor mage. He was the first being to possess magic, and also the founder of the organization Mobius. But, unfortunately, his existence completely vanished over time. That's why they focused on regression magic, a forbidden power that transcends time. With this power, they can finally revive the soul of Zero that once existed. Roku says Mickey stole this magic, and wonders who she might have used it on. But he warns that's not a problem, as they can use the remaining power within her. With Mickey's magic, her body will become a vessel, and Zero will be revived. Desperate, Cookie asks what will happen to his sister after the resurrection. With a cruel smile, Roku replies that, of course they'll kill her, as they have no need for traitors. Cookie is in shock, not knowing what to do to stop this madness. To save his sister, he needs to defeat Roku, but Mickey seems to be reacting. Suddenly, he notices a strange mark glowing on his sister's left hand. Cookie sees the insignia on her hand, and an idea sparks, but he hesitates, afraid of being wrong. Even so, he decides he has to take the risk and focuses his power into the palm of his hand. With his energy, he creates a sacred sword of pure white light, ready to attack. Roku scoffs, saying he's still fighting and that any attack is useless against him. But suddenly, the villain's expression changes to one of pure shock and surprise. Cookie doesn't attack him, but his own reflection in what seemed to be an invisible mirror. With the impact, the space shatters like glass, revealing the real Mickey behind it. Desperate, Roku runs to try and stop Cookie from reaching the girl, but the shards of the mirror block him as he screams in rage and frustration. Cookie passes through the broken barrier with a look of pure determination on his face. The attack pierces through the mirror world and strikes the real Roku, who starts to bleed. Cookie then announces with a serious look that he has finally returned from the mirror world. Wounded, Roku asks when he managed to figure out the whole trick. He explains that his sister's insignia is on her right hand, but in the reflection, it was on her left. And since he couldn't copy his skill, Cookie deduced he wasn't using one. Instead, he must have prepared some kind of trap in advance to protect himself. Cookie figured out that he had created a space where everything ricocheted and trapped him inside. So, he just needed to find the exit and destroy it, just like he did in the labyrinth. Roku understands, and Cookie confirms he attacked Mickey because the exit would be where he wouldn't attack. Injured, Roku admits he's good, but warns him that he's a little too late. Suddenly, a strange energy fills the area, catching Cookie by surprise. The scene shifts, showing his friends outside feeling the sinister tremor. Kuki runs to his sister, but Roku says the end of the world is already approaching. He claims the world will soon perish, making Kuki even more desperate. With Mickey in his arms, Kuki is told it's his fault because of his magical power. Roku explains that his world has too much power, making it perfect for an invasion. A strong energy begins to pour out of Mickey, as Roku yells that Zero will be revived. With a victorious smile, the villain confirms that the resurrection is finally happening. Outside, Kuki's friends look up at the sky, not understanding what's going on. Then, Kuki and Mickey are swallowed by the energy, as Irori screams his name. On the ground, Irori panics and screams Kuki's name while he holds Mickey. Just then, a dark portal sucks Kuki, Mickey, and their friends into the darkness. The scene changes to a place in complete ruins, with a mysterious man lying on the ground. Suddenly, a hand approaches Roku's body, which is lying there defeated and motionless. A blonde-haired man appears, complaining that waking up is as unpleasant as ever. He then turns and looks at his hand, feeling a strange sensation nearby. An insignia glows on his palm, and he wonders if there is someone else like him. He then realizes the presence he's feeling is from someone who possesses creation. A mysterious being appears, coldly addressing the surrounding monsters. The creatures stare back, showing all their fury and power. He then asks if they're happy, because he is finally awakened. In response, the monsters just roar, filled with hatred and instinct. But the man praises them, saying they never change with time, they just follow their instincts, devouring magical power as if it were life itself. The fallen young man gives a sigh of relief, thankful that he woke up just in time. But then he remembers the humans, and his face begins to contort. At that moment, the blonde being prepares his magic, a seal glowing in his hand. He calls them ugly and simply obliterates them in an instant. The scene then shifts to a house, with the door slowly opening. We see Kuki's mother waiting as he arrives at the door with Mickey. The boy smiles and announces he's home, making his mother emotional. She stumbles a bit and runs to hug them both tightly. In a flashback, Mickey thanks Kuki deeply for everything. Kuki apologizes for making her go through so much danger alone, but she's just grateful, because what matters is that her big sister is safe. Mickey then admits she didn't think Kuki could go that far. He gets serious, remembering that the end of the world is approaching, just as Roku said. In another flashback, Roku warns that it's useless to fight, as the gears will not stop, and he adds with a sadistic look, saying the world will soon perish. Roku explains to Mickey that it's her fault, because of her immense power. Their world was filled with an abnormal power, a perfect target for an invasion. Kuki then understands the real problem, blaming himself for everything. He stands there, stewing in his guilt, while Mickey watches him in silence. She then reveals she erased her skill, afraid that Roku would find her. But thanks to Kuki, her ability has returned, shining brightly on her wrist. He worries about the ancient magic, but she reassures him that it won't be harmed. Curious, he asks what kind of skill it is, and she explains that it affects time, space, and life. She then stands up, preparing to show what her ability can do. She turns to a vase, concentrating on a small plant. From her hand, magical gears appear, revealing she can manipulate time. And as she touches the plant, she explains that the power affects things she touches. Kuki's jaw drops, and she adds that it works on monsters too. With a determined look, she says she can now be useful in battle. He watches her, calling out for his big sister, completely moved. At this, Kuki firmly grabs her hand in a supportive gesture. He looks her right in the eyes and tells her she's not alone. Mickey's eyes fill with tears as she invites him to protect the world together. His determination grows as he hears her words about the world. Then, with a confident smile, he agrees to her plan. The scene changes to a fancy hall, with Kuki thanking everyone for coming. People whisper, talking about the rumors that he defeated several numbers. He then introduces himself as the licensed mage, Ikuta Kuki from the prophecy, and with great conviction, he declares to everyone that the end of the world is coming. He continues his speech, explaining that the reason they are all there is to make a declaration. With the audience in shock, Kuki announces the birth of the new 7 saviors. The first to be introduced is the powerful and elegant Igawe Himika. Next up is Kanai Momo, holding a small summoned creature. The feisty little creature is named Kyugi, showing off its grumpy face. The next is Suzaki Irori, who munches on a snack while facing the crowd. With a confident smile, Ikuta Miki also joins the new group of heroes. And finally, the imposing Sagai Tetsu is revealed as the last member. The group gathers in front of everyone, with Kuki leading the formation. He then points to himself and yells that he's going to save the world. The crowd goes wild, shouting that they're counting on him to save them all, but Kuki clenches his fist and warns that this alone isn't enough. The people are confused as he says that the 7 of them can't win alone. He shouts that if they don't unite everyone's strength, they won't stop the end of the world. Watching the speech on a large screen, People on the street feel useless and powerless. On the screen, Kuki gets real and tells everyone to stop thinking that way. He then shouts with all his might for each of them to see themselves as the true savior. Kanai Momo watches Kuki, impressed by the boy's courage and words. With that, the crowd gets fired up, yelling that they have skills too and can help. He smiles at their reaction, thinking that together, they can face even the end of the world. But suddenly, a malevolent presence emerges, and Kuki senses the danger in the air. Someone screams in desperation that the sky is full of holes, with monsters pouring out of them. Outside, the invasion begins, with S-rank or higher monsters appearing. Kuki is shocked by how fast it's happening, but Sage says it doesn't matter when they come. With his sword in hand, Sage fills with power and vows to erase every single one of them. A giant water dragon roars, preparing to annihilate the approaching enemies. Kuki composes himself and says that what they need to do hasn't changed at all. With the team assembled, all the saviors release their auras, ready for battle. He then fills with power and shouts that he will definitely stop all of them.